Right, this is going to be another episode of Snake and Banter. We have a return guest for this one. It is STYKO, who used to be a pro player, does all that content on YouTube. So now he's also trying to, it's one thing he was like gradually coming into YouTube, which is our domain, Maui, me and you. We own YouTube, like we are the mean girls of that, and you can't sit at our lunch table yet. But it's even worse. Now he's just taking our gigs too. Now he's trying to take our the food out of our mouths, STYKO. What do we ever do to you? Can't we live? You already were allowed to play. You could go and play in tier 700 and play, fucking, I don't know. You could be on any team, couldn't you? Yeah, not good ones, obviously. But yeah, what are we doing? I mean, you did a good job, so fair play with that, and all that. But now I low-key pull against you. Before, when you weren't in my domain.
You walked so I could run.
Oh, there you go.
You walked so I could run, yeah. So you laid it out for me, and then it's kind of working out for me as well. I mean, I'm trying to do something new and new experiences, so I like it. And it's been fun. And I'm taking my own approach to it, and I'm hoping that audience is, liking it.
I will say, one, good job. You did a good job with that event, I thought. Maybe people didn't expect it. You had some good insights. I will say, by the way, spoiler, just make them all mad right now. You know when on Reddit, they'll go, oh, he made a really interesting point about a game mechanic. They don't know that game mechanic before you say it, by the way. They all lie and pretend they do. Because remember, everyone on Reddit is 2,500, fucking matchmaking. They're all face it level 999. They secretly are Flusher's secret Smurf account, and they all know tactically, Blade, the way the game CS works. They don't, bizarrely, because I notice every time they compare Ziwu, Duncan, Monacy, they don't even mention the role they play, what they do in their teams, any maps they're good on. They just they mention the raw HLTV rating number and go, this one's higher. And that's and then they're like, thing is, Maui doesn't understand the game on a deep level like I do. So just get ready for that. Because here's the thing. You have to understand one concept, STYKO. I'll give you one little gift here. It's called the rubber band concept. Maui just found out recently, he got slapped by it. Right? When you first come on the scene, they love you because of the novelty. So it's like they're pulling the rubber band out, right? It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But you know what's going to happen if a rubber band keeps getting pulled like that. Eventually, when it snaps back, when they start hating on you, when they turn on you, oh, it's brutal when they turn. Now we had that year on the way up, and then it's when the World War Z haters mob the subreddit. That's when it gets dark, right, Maui?
Yeah, I mean, it's just I feel like I've seen the natural life cycle of so many talent at this point. That's I think Yanko, you, myself. It kind of feels like it reads the same way every single time. Yes. Where it's they do love the novelty of new talent right away, and then eventually you're going to say something negative about their favorite player, and then they're just going to instantly turn on you completely and say they were a big fan of you, but suddenly now I can't stand this guy. And then you get the pimp treatment, which is every single thread is just fuck pimp, puck fimp, constantly. And it's just there's nothing really he can even do to change the narrative, even if he actually has scalding takes or middle of the road takes or anything. He just everything he does is now just kind of picked apart by the community. So, but either way, I would just say STYKO, I mean, I think you did a really solid job there at the fall finals, and just I think the word of advice for all talent is just don't take the praise to heart, because then you're going to take the criticism to heart when it comes.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think it collides with a pro player as well. At some point, you're doing good, and then you're bombing out from 2-3 tournaments, and that shit just stinks. You can't even go to social media, open a DM. Sometimes I'm even scared to reply to a message that is coming from my family, because it will be a notification, at the phone somewhere saying something negative about me. So it's I'm trying to avoid it at all costs.
Okay. Right, well, here's the thing. When it comes to listening to other people, obviously a great headset would be really useful for that, wouldn't it? See how seamless that was there. Turtle Beach, which is now sponsoring this episode of Snake and Banter, so thank you to them. By the way, I've tried this out. I'm not really a big gaming headset guy, and I'll tell you why. Because normally gaming headsets are really cheap build quality. By the way, usually the headphone ear part crushes your ear, or you have to sort of force it around, or it has back in the day, remember those leather pads that as soon as you sweat, it's horrible and all that. So this is nothing like that at all. First of all, it's really snug. I've got a massive head, as you can imagine, contain that brain, contain the lost fucking Library of Alexandria of esports history up in there. So normally I don't like my ears being crushed, but this actually just fits nice and snugly over. It doesn't hurt at all. Also, what's cool is the mic is just built into it, And I'll tell you what, I won't say rival brands. Don't want to be rude to any players that come on. But most rival brands that are gaming headsets, the mic is where it all goes wrong. They are absolute trash. This one is actually pretty legit. I have to say, I was very surprised by the quality. Also, Maui obviously has one there. What do you think of the look of it, Maui? That's quite a stylish look too.
Yeah, I think it's pretty sleek overall. I think the plastic, I think it's like kind of matted a little bit. It looks pretty good. I think the
pads are really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that the ear cuffs are actually pretty breathable, so you can wear it for a pretty long time, and you're not gonna be like, yeah, like you said, if it's like leather, just your ears might sweat or something. But this feels more comfortable for sure.
And it does come with like a USB cable thing you can plug into stuff. You use a phone and all that.
Oh, it's Wi-Fi. I mean, it can be wireless. It can be wireless too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it is wireless. So you can just you can walk around.
You can listen to this podcast.
Talk to your friends on Discord.
Go and do something. Put the dishes in the dishwasher. Go to the toilet, like you say.
Exactly.
Get the ultimate immersive gaming experience with Turtle Beach today. For a limited time only, head to turtlebeach.com and use the code CSGO. Obviously, it's the best version of the game since 1.6. They know it. I know it. CS2, not really up to it, is it? For 10% off your order using code CSGO, your entire order, that's 10% off your order at turtlebeach.com with promo code CSGO. So if you like everything me and Maui talked about and you want to try a Turtle Beach headset, then get the ultimate immersive gaming experience with Turtle Beach today. For a limited time only, head to turtlebeach.com and use code CSGO for 10% off your entire order. That's 10%. There's not an echo in here. I'm repeating it. Off your order at turtlebeach.com with promo code CSGO. Now we will start the episode. So, actually, I have one last question. One last question for STYKO about being talent. It goes like this. I won't say who, but I did hear from someone who, let's say, might be your agent about last year or something. They actually hit me up, and it was one of those ones I never saw the DM, and they were like, hey, what do you think about, like, Martin, Styk, or whatever the fuck, like, because for some reason you took the name Styk and then just put the O on the end or whatever, which is like, whatever. And basically, I was like, oh, yeah, he's good at, like, cerebral player, good attitude and all that jazz. And then it was weird because I was thinking, why is he asking this? Because he like plays in a team already and he does YouTube content. What is this possibly for? Were you already thinking of branching out and then becoming a talent previously? Have you been eyeing this pivot before? Were you thinking about when you're into the last team as a fallback? What's the angle of why you took it?
Yeah, basically, when I was benched last year in Apex towards the end of the year, I was thinking about multiple stuff, obviously, because I was kind of bored and I had all of a sudden, like, no team to play with after like 8 years, and suddenly I had way too much free time on my hands. And I remember that another tournament organizer actually reached out to me, and they offered me spotted an event. It was like elite event. I'm not saying that it was like major, but it was S tier event for 2024. And there were actually 2 of them, and I said yes, like I would like to do it. Like I have nothing to do on my cards right now, and that sounds like a fun experience. Plus, it wasn't too away from me, like too far from my place. And I said yes. And then eventually Apex wanted me back because they wanted to retain the RMR spot, obviously. Right. And I had to apologize and write them an email. I'm sorry, I am actually not going to perform at this tournament as an analyst or whatever you wanted, because I'm actually attending as a player. So I snuck back in, and
good angle, by the way. What you're doing there is playing hard to get, and you're sort of raising your sets. Like, sorry, I'm actually still playing in this tournament right now. But I tell you what, in the future when I'm not busy, I'll be available. And then they're like, no, damn it, now I want to pursue him. The push and pull game has begun. This is our little dance.
I felt pretty bad about it, honestly. But at the end of the day, I think that. The whole thing with industry and being like really, really volatile, like you never know when you're gonna end up on a team. Like it happens probably a lot of times that you turn down the gig, and I know it happened at Blast to one certain person that they were supposed to be on the desk, but they had to say no last minute. I'm not gonna say who it is.
Sure. Yeah. Listen, Snax doesn't need you spreading his dirty laundry around. Like he'll be on the desk if he wants to be, mate. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but then you went to the tournament and got 13-0'd by Donk, though. So I don't know who's the real winner.
Yeah, I should have been analyst. It would have been a better time there. But I think it was good to come back. Honestly, Katowice was pretty bad, but we eventually made it to the major, and it was the ultimate goal for Apex as organization. I think we did that job, but then it went downhill from there.
Sure. No, by the way, you're about to realise, though, you have just gone, as we say in English with our idiom, STYKO, from the frying pan to the fire. Because if you think in teams, it's like, you never know when you're going to get cut or you have to join a new team. Wait till you find out how it works with getting hired for events, mate. Because spoiler, I'll just drop this banger right now. Just wait and see in the future, guys, when you find out the talent lineup for the Shanghai Major. Woo! You are going to be, that's going to be an interesting Reddit thread. I'll be reacting to that on my stream, twitch.tv/Thorin, just shameless plug there. Right, let's just get into the episode anyway. We've done enough of waffling with STYKO. We can, maybe one day we'll get to the heights that he does, Maui, and we'll be on a desk with him and we can go, yes, STYKO, I agree. It's not just that, but also this. Then we can make a point and awkwardly go on. But if I do, I will say, you know how it goes, mate. If I am on a desk, I'm not like I am. I'm not the nice guy on show. I'll roast the fuck out of you. Don't worry about that. Like, there'll be some fire. Listen, I won't say who. Sadly, I can't say the name. Well, I can say the name. Put it this way, when Maniac used to be on, I used to often reference the fact that he was carried by Kenny Hess, you know, to every titles. All the classic ones, all the bingo card, you know. By the way, he's not dead. We are allowed to reference that he was a player and a talent in the scene. That is a real thing that happened. Right, let's get into the show, though. So, STYKO, obviously, you start with the first point. What is your good point?
So for me, this one goes both ways, I think. But we are, in my opinion, pushing the age limit in Counter-Strike 2. And I think that's a good thing. We're pushing it both ways. Not necessarily what people are only thinking about, like, okay.
By the way,
like
STYKO's 28, in case you wondered, but keep going.
Yeah, 28, but listen, this is a good thing for me as well, because
exactly, it is.
Going back as a player, this might actually pay off.
Some would say you're sort of feathering your own nest in case you need to go back to being a player. Sure.
Okay, but let me start from the other end. So I think that there's a lot of young players coming into the scene, and I think that generally, I think it's beautiful that we have these academy teams trying to cater in and trying to influence people from the young age to become better players. So that's a first good thing, but also we're pushing the age now above the limit of, well, sometimes we were saying like 30 years old, you have no business in Counter-Strike, like the reflexes will be just off, and it's just objectively not true with what we're seeing lately, especially in 2024, if you look at the winners of the tournaments. So we have had Vitality winning by Cologne, which is Apex 30+. Then we've had Kerrigan, obviously, being at the top
and Rain.
Multiple years winning Grands. Yeah, Rain as well in that team. Now, recently, Snax won an event, obviously. We're looking at the players that are not statistically just carrying the team into victory. But we're looking at intangibles that are kind of hard to quantify, that clearly are doing something right when it comes to either forming a team or creating an environment for a well-performing team. And I think this is never going to be a thing where people just focus on, oh, they bring the good vibes or they bring maturity. Never going to be like that. But I love the fact that we're able to play Counter-Strike at different levels. And we have young, pure aim talents that are going to out-aim everyone, and then there's a possibility of a backup plan of just beating people with experience. And this is such a cliche thing to say, but in some games, you are just not able to do that. In Counter-Strike, you get best of both worlds, where you can build a game plan based on experience, fakes, outbraining, outpositioning, outmaneuvering, and then there are pure defaults which are aimed, towards out-aiming, reacting the opponents and out throwing them with the utility, stuff like that. That is like catered towards that younger audience that is just coming in and just doing pure headshots. So I love the narrative here, that we're kind of game that is able to push it both towards the younger side and then the older side.
Thoughts, Maui? Obviously, he's giving you a lay up there for the whole like vets in the NBA topic that everyone's always talking about on those podcasts, Annie.
It's cool to see just how the age is being pushed. I mean, I just looked it up. The last Copenhagen major, as long as these posts that I'm reading are correct, it seems like there was about 25 average years old for the participants at the last major. And I was thinking about, like, one thing is that a game that I feel like is also aging is Dota, and the average age for the major was 24 and a half, or the international. So I feel like we are kind of, and I feel like in people's heads, they say like, oh, I mean, this player is kind of like, they're getting to the later age of 20s or whatever, or maybe it's like, Counter-Strike is constantly pushing that whole narrative because people have been playing the game since 1999, and I'm not saying all the people that are in their young 20s are, that'd be just flat out impossible, but like some of the older heads, like, I mean, Blade's been around for forever, Kerrigan's been around for a really long time, and I think that the longevity that they have in the game allows them to play, like STYKO said, the people that can rely on experience. Like, I think FaZe Clan is probably one of the teams that seems to just sort of rely on experience probably too much when they show up to a tournament. But I think one team that it's within their game plan, but it's the way that they're able to seemingly all add to that game plan round to round is Na'Vi, and I feel like they play beyond their years, which is always really impressive. But then I think of some of the teams that are a little younger who have maybe even been having some trouble lately reinventing themselves, and that actually is, to me, Spirit and Maus. Like, there are teams that can't rely on experience. They basically need their first game plan to go well, and despite the fact that I've praised Shuhei a lot as an in-game leader, sure, he wasn't at the Blast Fall Finals, but I feel like he's kind of having a tough time right now trying to find that second gear, because he definitely knows the style him and Maus want to play, but getting it to that level of just the Kerrigan experience where he can fall back and just halfway through a map just be like, wait a second, our first game plan isn't working, let's switch to this kind of style, or we don't need to go follow the game plan, let's just default because we always know that we're going to be better in late round situations. It's why Prime Astralis was as scary as they were, because not only would they have a couple tricks, but if they wanted to just kind of bleed the clock down, get it down to 30 seconds and make the final great late round call, they were all capable of doing that. So yeah, I think that's one of the ways that Counter-Strike has a lot of depth to it. And once you develop your eye test, you can actually really see this. That's what's also really cool. It's not just kind of like I feel like maybe I just don't have the eye test for it, but in some other games, I feel like it's a little bit more difficult to notice that. Like, what would be an example? I mean, like 1v1 games, I guess I'm not as familiar with. Like, so I can't really tell if I'm watching like the Rocket, or I guess Rocket League's not, but like when I watch Rocket League, I'm like, I don't know what experience is here versus just good mechanics, and that it presents itself so clearly in Counter-Strike, which is like a 5v5, all these macro elements that work together.
Put it this way, I will say, to pick up on your last point there, I can give you an example from League of Legends, actually, that goes on right now. So, you know, last year, the Esports Awards, the dreaded Esports Awards, who now, by the way, now he still works for some of these people, so I won't do the joke I was going to do there. But basically, you know, you all know why they're different now, aren't they? By the way, I was years ahead of that. I was blacklisted years ago from that shit, not even because of the modern day things. That's the thing, I'm sort of a pioneer in many ways. I've led cancellations, all sorts of shit. I was doing it way before you kids. Beef. Exactly, I got cancelled before Kanye, mate. He's a hero man. But clip that, hero man. There you go. Everything he ever said, obviously I agree with. And no, that's a joke, isn't it? Obviously, don't clip that. So what I will say is this. In League of Legends, they gave Faker the player of the year in all of esports last year because he won Worlds, right? Spoiler, he hasn't been the best player in League of Legends, I'm not joking, since 2017. So literally 7 years ago. But what he does have, Maui, is he's like really good at shot calling and he's super clutch in the bit. And if the other person gets scared, like a player that's way better, gets those nerves in the hands in the big game, then he might be able to make an okay play. It's not like he got the super mechanics anymore. And as a result, he's still a somewhat relevant player, as long as he has, crucially, this all ties to my CS point, as long as he has other pieces. Like, by the way, the star players of his team, for my money, is his top player is like a really sick player, his support player can play all these extra things. So you have to have, essentially, the point here out is, it's like an equation, isn't it, which we already did in teams. We already do the firepower equation, we already do the shot calling equation. So again, if you want an older player, if the mechanics are there, by the way, I don't see what's wrong with Rain's mechanics. Am I missing something? If Rain went tomorrow and joined like fucking Heroic or something and said, I want to actually be a star rifler, look, he wouldn't be donk, bro, he could probably be like the 20th best player in the world or something. Like, he actually looks like, when you see him take those 1v1 duels, mate, this guy doesn't even look like he knows he can lose the fight. He's fucking ridiculous. Then if you're Kerrigan and you do have no hands left anymore, I mean, mate, at this point in time, like, I make a joke, like, he has the reactions of a fucking dead lemur. Like, he has non-existent reaction. He doesn't even fucking shoot him in the head, bro. He just sort of sprays almost like in a circle, like if fucking time is a flat circle. Shout out to Detective Season 1. That's Kerrigan spraying onto someone's body in the mid. But I'll tell you what, this is the point I'm going to make about vets. obviously the clutch factor and the experience is ridiculous for him. So I tell you what, even though Carrigan looks like he sucks and he's always going to have low stats generally, if you ever put him either in a 1vx in like a massive stage game where the other guy doesn't have experience, or just a mid-round like Team Liquid found out when they were on T-side of Mirage, he will just do a push or a play where just the balls or the experience or like the understanding that he's not going to choke, but they are, that can actually be a weapon. And obviously his brain makes up for so much of the rest of it, isn't it? Like essentially, people don't know the reference. He's sort of like Peyton Manning. He's like actually having your coach play in the fucking server with you in a game where the real coach can only talk 2 times per half or whatever. Like, that's OP if you can use it. If you can actually make the mid-round adaptations and between the round adaptations and call setups for people, that's fucking OP. That can make up for not being able to shoot people that much. That's why half the people, everyone tells me they want to replace Carrigan. I'm always like, no thanks, mate. Like, that would just be better fragging and none of the calling. I'd be fucking falling its arse. Then you've got the factor that, by the way, I've mentioned this in the past, but I actually do for real think you need veterans to keep people's egos down. You know, back in the day, this is where I made a mistake. I used to think, stupid flip side, why would you kick s1mple? He's way better than any of you were ever going to be. And what I didn't realise was they probably did s1mple the biggest favour of his fucking career there. He was way better than every other member of that team, but he was such an arsehole. Like, he thought Blade was shit, bro, and was removing off Steam after matches. If you actually think that, well, one, how did that turn out simple? I think that Blade guy turned out to be pretty fucking dope, didn't he? And then secondly, there's also the factor that just because you can shoot better than the rest of us, you don't get to be a dickhead. You actually have to learn basically like skills, human skills, how to be a teammate. And that's one thing that in sports has been lost. You can come out of high school now. It's going to be even worse in American sports now that they've done that NIL thing where in college you could be a millionaire and have a $20 million shoe contract. Like, their ego is going to be fucking bonkers when they get to the NBA. And you'll join your team and you'll be the star player from day one. What I love is back in the day, I've given this analogy before, back in the day in football in England, if you joined, even if you were the most shit hot 19-year-old talent in the world, when you join the team, they literally make you clean their fucking boots, the veterans, and shit like that. Because what they're trying to show you is everyone has to go through this and has to be humbled and learn that the team's bigger than them. And even the best player does this for the first year or two, then he earns a bit of status. And then if you also play well, you earn a bit more status, but just being crispy with your aim doesn't do it. By the way, I'll just reference some people in CS. People like Esperanto had to learn this the hard way. He was fucking smurfing on those tier 2 clowns. But I tell you what, he seemed like he had a negative mentality. Smooya has never learned this lesson, despite how many times he has been given the fucking chance to learn it. The joke now is just look up how old Smooya is, boys. Like, that ship has fucking sailed. So I actually do think this is an important thing we also need in the scene, because think about Counter-Strike. Because we are the game where you can even on camera do a middle finger to other people, which I think's dope, but it's not like the other esports games, boys. Again, you think Valorant's your saviour, or you don't know Riot Games, mate. So I do think that people don't realise that because we allow you to be spicy in this game, some people have gone too far with it and they've taken it to they're like being tyrants within the team and they're doing things like overruling everyone else. So I think this is a brilliant. And also, by the way, you're right, Maui. If you look at the MOBA games, Dota's a great example. Because in Dota, especially, you can play heroes and other roles. What people do is they start their careers as the carries, the 1 and 2 position. Then if you notice, if they're still really skilled, they go to off lane and they're the greedy off laner. And then when they're really old, they go, I am a support / shot caller now. And then they just become the guy where it's like, look, I've got all the shit in my brain, but I can't do it with my hands. Get me some like shit hot fucking 8K MMR guy from mid who can only hit creeps and that, and then I'll tell him what to do. And it works.
The average age for carries at the International was 22 and a half.
There you go. Perfect.
Was 28 and a half.
Perfect.
So it's like 6 years older.
Yeah, people don't know. Like, the fucking Carrigan of Dota is like Poppy, if you don't know. The guy who was with Team Secret. Like, he was around for 1 million fucking years. Like, right? He played at the first International, guys. STYKO looks like you want to hop in here, but because 1, I am your OG and you will address me as such, and 2, you're new to the whole sort of talent game, you're sort of waiting your turn like a nice schoolboy. Just jump in. What do you want to say, mate? Come on.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we appreciate the reference, by the way. Go on.
Bunch of things, but okay, listen, OG. So what Maui said is actually pretty true with Spirit, Mouse, and Navi. I think I thought about it when I was making this point. Like the player average age on those teams are kind of lower. But when I'm looking at the most influential figure on those 3 teams are all coaches. For me, Spirit has Halle, and I've been standing in front of their booths at Blast, and the guy just talks nonstop. He's like making sure everyone is on the same page during the timeouts. Is just purely him. For Maus, I think it's Cyclone. I think the guy has been around for a really, really long time, and he's just the figure that is kind of pushing the team forward, and he's the most influential one, even though Suhi is IGL. And for Navi, it's just Blade. It's just straight up Blade is the one that is creating the game plan, the system, together with LXCP, obviously, but Blade is clearly the most influential there. That's why I think these teams actually work really well. And that is, again, like pushing the boundaries of the coach being even 35. Maybe we will have a coach turning 40 soon, and he's going to be the one making sure that team is in top 10. And also CS2 is a new game, and we have to think about it that sometimes you say that you can't teach the old dog new tricks, right? But actually old players kind of figured out the way how to be relevant still in a game that is way sharper, way faster, and way more there are way too many circumstances where you need to adapt on the fly. And I think that these older players are still doing good enough job that they're making sure that their team is relevant and competitive. So I want to give props to everyone who kind of did it. And yeah, for an IGL role, like we mentioned Apex, Snax, and Apex. All of them are obviously IGLs now, and that is probably the play. Like for League of Legends, mid player will become support player eventually, and he's going to be the shot caller. Well, that's a play probably for me as well. If I want to ever come back to the scene, I think I have to just switch to IGL and do it the hard way.
By the way, a little note there. I actually think it's a fire point about the coaches. Like, if people haven't noticed, I didn't really have much of a take when Spirit burst out and they were wrecking everyone at Katowice. And they did look, by the way, like they were going to revolutionize CS or some shit. Like the way they were playing, they were good on all the maps. It was insane. A lot of people, understandably, because he's like an older guy and everyone wants to believe in like the fucking movie line, Chopper, it's time to be the king or whatever. I'm not a massive Chopper fan. I think he's all right. So I never really got on that train, but I was waiting to see. So what is it? How are they doing this? And I have to say, the more I watch, the more I think it's Halle. Now, it's funny because I have to say, I do flame the fuck out of him for some of the vetoes. Like, I do think essentially he makes the mistake of taking rookies and throwing them on maps where you obviously didn't do the prep for that. You stupidly thought it was a punish angle in the veto, or even worse, you're doing stuff like, but we lost the last time on Nuke, like our best map. It's like, you fucking pick your best maps, you idiot, when you can play them. So I do criticise him, but I tell you what, everything else that I've seen looks to me like he's doing a fabulous job prepping the team, getting them ready for it, etc. On the Cyclone one, that's an interesting angle, because I agree, obviously it's clever that they took the academy coach anyway, but I do think that actually ties back to the point about vets. You know what? I've said this in the past. I've even DM'd people like fucking Exertion during tournaments and told them, fuck all this noise of like, but we might make a final and then after that maybe we can win it. I say, you should win the tournament now. You're already good enough, you idiots. Like, you have literally the team that everyone wants to pick apart in all of Europe, by the way, and make all the top teams better. And right now, in theory, every single player is good and is fragging. Like, you just win now if you're good enough. But I'll tell you what, here's why they don't win. Because they're not experienced like the rest. You see in their team, they have when I compare them to TSM in 2015, yeah, they were already fucking young too. They were all really young as well, and Carrigan had only just become an IGL, so I think people do undervalue experience, because what happens is eventually you take experience for granted and you just look at the hands and you think, if I replace this guy's hands with another guy's hands, he doesn't have the brain, does he? Right, okay, yeah. Maui, where we go next? What is the next topic? Spicy one I see here. Let's see where you go. Yeah. Good point, of course. Listen, he's put this, guys. I didn't do this. He's put this as his good point. Let's see. What did you put as your good point, Maui?
I think that the latest Counter-Strike update has gotten a lot of flack for the fact that it looks like it's just the Valve is just saying, hey, we release more skins at the same time and you have to buy a pass for it. And yeah, that is obviously the most eye-catching part of this, but I feel like people are missing the subtext, or the fact that you have to scroll down to read these patch notes. No, they fixed a couple things. Like it feels like I can't really point to them as closely because I haven't played the game.
Well, there's like the thing with the legs on CT side that look more accurate animations. That's one thing.
Exactly. That's the primary part of this. Like, it feels like there's less delay in going in some of the kills that you're getting. I feel like I'm not getting killed around walls as easily as I was before, or like kind of like the way you get rubber banded back and then you get killed and you thought you jiggled, but you didn't actually jiggle. Like, those kind of things don't feel like they're as bad now. But the main thing that I wanted to talk about is like the lean, the way that the the animation for the T or CT model would just kind of lean into an angle, like it would go chest first while strafing. Like I've talked about this a lot on my stream and just kind of like on Twitter, but I feel like I haven't talked about it on this podcast that much. And I just wanted to say that it looks like they fixed it. So this is not really going to be a point anymore, because now the model is more straight up and down. And it was like, if people, you shouldn't know what this is, but if you do, because you're on the internet too much, it was like the aggressing T model would always fail the green line test when it's entering into a bomb site. Like it would always just be like leaning too far into it, showing weakness. But now it's more up and down. It's more straight up and down, and it looks more like CS:GO when you're holding angles, which I feel like is going to improve the fact that if you're holding an angle, you have good crosshair placement, it's just going to feel more natural to click the guy. Like it still feels kind of fast compared to CS:GO for some reason. I might just be getting used to that again. But either way, they fixed the animation, and that's like the biggest thing to me. This was the reason that I felt like Peeker's advantage, even on land, still felt pretty bad, because the models just felt like they were these like kind of wormy bodies that were just kind of like moving around and kind of shifting in the wind almost.
Right, STYKO, believe it or not, despite what people might think, I don't mind if people disagree with me. So I'm not setting you up here. Like this isn't like a subliminal command. You can disagree with Maui if you want, or you can agree with me. What do you think of the latest update?
Okay, so listen, I think, first of all, the update itself, I think it's good that we're getting at least something. We're at the point where we're
glass half full.
Freaking starving. But I'm going to give you that the animation fake is just not enough. Like, it still needs tweaking. It's still hard to hold angles. It's better, but it was impossible before. It's slightly more possible right now. I think it's borderline unacceptable to have these kind of, we have a competitive game on our hands, and yet there's so many inconsistencies created inside of the game that are out of players' control, that you have to be thinking about when you think you have a fair duel, but you know that the game might screw you up, and that will force you to change the angle that you're holding, because you're not at that point, you're not just holding the angle that people will peek into, but you have to kind of predict where they will stop. And that is where you need to position your crosshair. So it's not only like you're reacting to them, but you're trying to predict where they're going to react to you by stopping and shooting back at you, which in my opinion is completely counterintuitive, which we will get to it soon. But for my bad point is like really hard to get consistency going in CS2. I think there's just way too many variables in Counter-Strike right now that it's making really hard for any players of any level to perform consistently. And this is just hands down, in my opinion, true. It's getting better with the fixes like this.
Sure.
But the update itself, if I have to comment on the update itself, people are, thinking that they have to, again, like buy a pass to do something new. I will have one message for these people. Whenever Operation came out in CSGO or CS2 and you bought the pass for it for, let's say, 10 euro or 10 USD, you will always make money back. Like, they made the system that by skins or by playing the game, eventually you will get enough valuable things that you can sell back for at least double the amount. It's almost like an investment, and you're paying it back. You have to play the game to pay back for it, but it's always going to make you money. I haven't been around CSGO operation that haven't been basically making me money back when it comes to, well, I'm not opening cases, but I'm just selling them. So this angle that you have to pay money, I think it's completely just unnecessary, and it shouldn't be there.
Right, on this update, here is my take. The problem is, I'll do the STYKO approach. So it's like, look, it's better than a kick in the dick. So yeah, it's good that they've slightly fixed their animations and they go on that. Yeah, that's all good. There's some certain other things they seem to be tweaking as well. My problem, the obvious one here, is I'm not one of these people who's like an operation seller. Like, where are the operation? The only operation that's needed with some of you is like, it's like they put like a metal thing up here and then you move up and down a couple of motions. That frontal lobe gets destroyed and then you'll never worry about any of this shit again. You'll just be, this is good.
No,
Mummy, can I play Roblox? Like, you don't need to look that up on the internet. What I'm talking about. The ancient Egyptians were right on top of that. They just took care of you guys ages fucking ago. So I will just say, I don't mind operation shit. I don't care about the law of the game. I just want to play the game and have it be good. That's where I am on the STYKO side too, though. I can't handle that that's not fixed. I can't handle that the jumps are still scuffed. I can't handle that the netcode's still a little bit dodgy, because the problem is people on land don't have to mind, but online it's going to be fucking sus, isn't it? CSGO netcode wasn't bad, actually. In fact, it was better than 1.6 if people don't know. You could sort of play online games. It was reasonable. And then also, I'm just going to put this out there. I know it doesn't have to be all the time, But fucking please stop beating me with Vertigo, Gooby. Please, no more Vertigo time. Can I just have another map? I know they say train's coming soon. Fucking hell, not soon enough. Right, the joke is that a light at the end of the tunnel, or is it a train coming? That's straight fire. That not bad. If I was on a desk, I'd probably do that. I'll just sit, and then what do I get in exchange for it? Like, yeah, STYKO's right. If I play the game, I do get the cases dropped, and then in theory I can sell the cases, Or can you STYKO? I don't know in the game. If you can actually. That is the way the marketplace works. So obviously in theory, if you grind, you can basically make money off the game, etc. But what did they give me as a cosmetic? First of all, I don't want cosmetics. I'm the loser who didn't want skins. I just want the device. I just want the default. I don't care. Until they gave me a Neon Rider from a certain company, I was like, you know what? I'll flex on these little fucks with this shit. Until I got that, I never bought a skin ever, mate. That was given to me. So I would never buy a skin or use a skin. So I'm obviously not that sort of a zoomer, right? I just play the default game. So my problem is the fact that you have like some little fucking anal beads hanging off the front of a deagle isn't like a positive to me, believe it or not. Like, I actually would like the deagle to be able to fire into the head of the other guy with the netcode really clean while making a jump. No, I don't want to fail a jump and then see my little beads jaggle. A little fucking little Irish little four-leaf clover, like little Conor McGregor shit. God. I don't want that. So, you know what, Maui? It's all good. There was some good part in that. You did pick the good part out, but there is some negatives to the match too,
Oh, God, I hate the dangling little gun buddy.
I find that distracting. Am I the only one?
Dude, sometimes people have that on my teams and they just have it on the very tip of their barrel, and it's like, how can you even focus? Like, I feel like I need to change my view model now because I just pick up guns where this little dangly sausage is at the end of the gun, and I'm just like, this looks stupid, and it's almost kind of like, why? Like, I just need a setting to turn that off. Like, I can't handle that. If any of my teams had that and I played at a professional level, I'd say, dude, please do not drop me guns. I just can't handle that.
Right, you ready? Watch how this is done, STYKO. Because normally, I'm someone who calls people out, calls them out on their bullshit, hypocritical, like, that's such a transparent, cynical angle you took there on that thing. So watch how I do this. I'm going to do a Maui style, incredibly self-indulgent, good point. That's actually outrageous that I would even do, because, by the way, I would never talk about this at all if I wasn't hired. I'm going to say the desk at Elisa Masters Espoo, I think, is straight fire. And in fact, the event in general is a lot better than you'd think. I believe tickets still possibly available. If you go and look, they already have a desk, which I think, look, I'm going to brand it this way. It's the desk the other TOs were too scared to hire. That's right, scared, not just, didn't want to hire us. Which is obviously Richard Lewis host, straight fire. He's doing a daughter event right now. If people don't know, Mauisnake, the old Mauisnake, he's back. And then the joke is, for all his association with me might have cost him, he gets to do a tiny event in Finland. So you know what, in the end, it all worked out, didn't it? Not really, but okay. Don't worry about that. I'd rather be doing majors personally, but enough about that. And then there's me. Esports himself, the living avatar. In the same way, Vishnu isn't actually just a god. He's like an avatar of the god form that represents certain things. I represent banter in the world and historical knowledge about the game. But bizarrely, though, I don't know a single thing about the game. I have no game knowledge. I've watched the game for like 20 plus years, so I must actually have the most severe learning disability ever witnessed in humans. Maybe actually at the beginning of the game, someone did that to me with a knitting needle, And I was like, oh, hey, they came second at that tournament, man. Yeah, but why? Because they didn't come first. That's all I do. That's all I do with my content. But I tell you what, I make it sort of funny by going, and he shit at it though. That's why he came second. And then they go, oh, he got him. At least they used to. Nowadays they go, it's a 41-year-old man saying he's saying a literal fetus, a child playing in a Navi jersey. He's bullying him. He's 41 years old. And then just do that all day long. So it's all good. Don't worry about that. I'm back. The devil's back. And tell you what, that desk is going to be straight fire, because what you haven't thought of, this is what the plebs haven't thought of, is because it's not the biggest teams in the world, we are going to go fucking ham. Spoiler, I'm not worried about some Finnish guy, some fucking android motherfucker. Thorin, you're being a little bit too much of that. Shut the fuck up. I did all the majors, bro. You go and sit over there and get ready my fucking fee. And I want it like a medieval king. I want it in a little pouch with a little fucking thing around the leather part at the top. At the end of the event in gold coins. Get my fee ready and just sit back and enjoy the show, mate. They're already watching for me. Understand, these teams aren't even like in the top 10. They're just coming to watch me, Richard Lewis Maui, dominate. And also, not only have we all been to the top, I won't say any more than that. We have been there technically at one point in time to the top. But they've got Anders Bloom there, Anders B. Loom, the weaver of narratives, into a tapestry of Counter-Strike. I've told him if he pays me, he can have that. That's a straight fire thing. That's a tagline and a half right there, mate. Also, Vince is there, aka Budget Anders, because if you've already paid Anders' fee, you're going to have to fucking budget after that, mate. So you got the Budget Anders, the man, the myth. Is he going to say legend? Is he going to say legend? Say legend. Say legend. The cliche. The beast! No, by the way, it's still one of our favourite calls of all time because it's like he subverted your expectations on the end of the call. Yeah. By the way, we all know he was going to say legend too, but he smartly realised, well, everyone said that line before. So he just said beast, and we all remember that cold zero round at like DreamHack Leipzig 2016 or whatever it was. Straight fire, I can even remember shit like that.
So good.
Which is the one they lost in RV, obviously. Then that was against fucking Dignitas, I think, against Kirby and them. And then there was also, what else? Oh, there's also, who else? There's someone else. Oh, James Banks. Banks. And here's the thing. When you have a crew like us, we are metaphorically going to smash the heads in of any pro players that play like shit.
Oh, no.
I didn't say that. By the way, you know the saddest thing, if no one ever knows? Because I am a journalist, remember? So you have to understand, I listened back to that. Like not only Maui will know this reference. I listened back to that like the movie The Conversation from the 70s by like Coppola, where it's like they keep replaying the same like audio track over and over again. Or for modern day fans, like the Zapruder film, well, the conspiracy people go frame, but look, they took a frame out, and then the guy in the front turned around with a gun. Like, you know, when they do that, they're looking at, I listened to that clip over and over and over again. The worst part is, guys, he didn't even say, I want to smash their heads in or something. He said something like, I want players in interviews to say stuff I'm going to smash their heads in. Sadly, people took that as Banks going, and you know what? These pro players, I want to smash their fucking heads in, which would actually be the most out-of-pocket thing ever to say. And your job off camera in many ways. So, look, that whole thing's whatever. The point is, and here's the funny thing, I saw all idiots going, oh my God, Richard Lewis and Banks, right? When Banks was coming up, you idiot, he came through the UK scene in 1.6. Me and Richard know him. He's even worked with us ages back in the day. Like, we knew this guy when he was just this tall, instead of like that tall or wherever the fuck he is now. You know how it works. So, let's now see what you all think. Now, obviously, Mauisnake. No, you know what? Maui should come last. That'd be too indulgent to go straight to Maui, also work in the event. STYKO, as a totally neutral observer, what do you think of this Elisa Masters desk?
Can I say even something
bad
when you're too?
No, you should do.
There's nothing.
You should do.
This thing is like, this is completely subjective topic for me, again, because, well, what's there not to like? I'm going to just tune in for the desk segments and then watch some CS ad in between the desk segments. That's the main stars of the show are you. And, you know, the thing is with the talent, and as we said, like, it's kind of work where you never are secure, and it's kind of the environment where literally no long-term contracts kind of happen, and bridges are burned very easily, and then they're being built for years sometimes. So I understand that from this perspective, talent work is a tough job, and I'm just glad that some people that when I was becoming a pro player, and these people like you and Richard were on the desk, I kind of miss it, you know? It kind of gives me a nostalgia feeling as well. I obviously know now through content that you guys are just not going to hold back, and that it's just going to be much more exciting for me, because even me, sometimes, whenever I was analyzing for Blast, for example, I had to hold myself back a couple of times because for my niche, I want to analyze obviously in-depth things when it comes to Counter-Strike. But sometimes I had to actually scrap my idea because I think it was too advanced for casual viewer, which we're catering to in the end. Okay, so I said to Pimp, like, should we cover this round? And he was like, no, just save it for the tweet or something. Like, do something about it later for your YouTube.
Pimp's
whatever.
Just sabotaging the new guy, of course. Yeah, well done, Pimp.
And then he takes the point, and says, I'm like,
of course.
No.
Classic banter.
He didn't do that, but you have to kind of understand your audience, and I think you guys are doing a perfect job, because whoever is going to watch that tournament is probably your audience as well, from YouTube, from Twitch, and you just know how to make them entertain. And, you know, I'm one of them, so subjective, but I'm going to tune in.
Okay. Like, Maui, what do you think of this Elisa Masters Espoo desk?
Oh, what do I think of me getting hired to talk shit with you guys?
Would that be a good point in your opinion or not? You know, where would you put that?
I'm probably just going to make it a good point after the event's over, too. Right. We're just going to double down on this one. Yeah. Yes. I mean, if people I think that one thing that's going to be really interesting about this one. Okay, let me indulge first. Okay, I think that this is obviously going to bring what basically everybody has wanted for such a long time in terms of you and me doing something live in person together and having Richard is just crazy. Like there's such a, I don't think people always get this. And I think that one thing to give credit to another podcast in this space, Talking Counter is usually doing stuff live in person because they're working at all of these events. And then you get to see so much more of the natural chemistry that is between those guys. But the thing is that when it's you and me on this show, or really if I'm doing something with Richard on another thing online, there is the barrier of having to pause, usually wait, let the other person start talking, and you can't naturally banter between each other. Like interjecting is a little bit more awkward on a webcam show than it is in person, and we're finally going to be able to do that. Like the chemistry is going to flow in such a different way. It's going to sound way better. I feel like the fact that the background noise to the death segments is going to be these games that like aren't really going to determine the fate of any of these teams, but it's just going to be an entertainment product to kind of like supplement it. It's almost like you're getting three guys in a room and we're just like watching games together and we're just going to like talk shit nonstop. It's like, I feel like also one thing that'll be interesting is that desk retention for tournaments is generally speaking kind of low. Yep. And I feel like I'm actually really curious. I'll actually just flat out ask Elisa for this kind of stuff. What are the numbers for our desk segments in comparison? Because I feel like this is such an unprecedented desk in terms of, if you looked at some of these teams and they're going to play online, you're going to probably expect them to get maybe like 4,000 viewers on like a game that's even on HLTV. And I feel like the death segments themselves will get more than that. And I like scrolled through it really quickly. The Snake and Banter that we did with Richard on this channel had the most views of anything we've ever done on Last Free Nation Counter-Strike with like 80,000+. And even when you guys were doing Return of By the Numbers, which was insanely successful, I feel like I like skimmed through it really quickly. I think maybe like 3 times ever you guys breached like 80 that same number, like above 85,000 or so people that watched it. And yeah, that's why I'm curious, like what are these viewership numbers going to be? Also, what are the VOD numbers going to be? Because I think some people aren't going to watch it live, but they're going to go back through this VOD just to see the death segments. I think people should just clip those. Like there's going to be so much clip-worthy content. The one thing I'm going to say that's going to be bad, Reddit, there's a good chance they're just going to take all this shit down. Like all this like desk stuff they do for whatever reason, so little desk stuff stays on the front page anymore. Like I don't know what used to happen, but like pre 2017, 2018, there was so many clips that were on the front page of Reddit from the desk. And I feel like they made, I don't know what the ruling was behind it. I don't know if you know Thorin, but it felt like an anti-Thorin rule where it was like you were getting so many clips on the front page, but you also pissed off Reddit mods. And so they stopped allowing clips from the front page on the front page of the desk.
There was something
and they
like
slowly
that.
let it trickle back in.
I think it was just that initially they maybe limited like the specific hosting site. I can't remember what it was called back then that you still put the clips on. I believe you could put a Twitch clip now, but in that way you sort of trained the Redditors not to put the stuff up, I think. So as far as I know, like it's happened with you a few times, I think you can put the clips up. Like obviously the joke is in the modern day, the only time a clip goes up is like, fuck Pimp for saying this. Like, you know, like, or here's him clipped out of context or something like that.
I mean, I had during the Paris Major, there were 3 clips of me in the whole like Cadian rant after map 2 and map 3, like, and people were just railing me in the entire comment section completely. And they left those up for a while, but then for whatever reason, if I do something funny, they're like, that's not relevant. Like, I don't even understand it. Like, they just like, this is rule 4 that isn't relevant to the. It's like, what? Like, what? Why are they allowed to flame, but they're not allowed to? I don't know. I don't know the agenda there.
And also, before everyone starts shitting on the teams that are there, first of all, because they announced the Roar, it's not actually as bad as you think. There's a few like top 20 teams, some top 30, some top X. Yeah, there's one that's like super bad, really ranked. But the joke is that's the one you want to see it finish anyway. It's Alu, X7 and fucking Ariel from Old Ends.
Yeah.
So there's even an interesting angle to that, isn't there? Where it's not completely a random team. And also, how dare anyone on Reddit ever talk shit on these teams? Just shitting on them. They should be celebrated for qualifying to this LAN. Just taking cues. Listen, I'm trying to update my playbook. I haven't done events in a while, Styko. You have to understand I have to learn from the other analysts in the scene, don't I? I am going to turn at one point, by the way, to Maui and tell him he doesn't belong here and to get the fuck out.
Just tell me you go play.
Right, okay. What is your bad point, Styko? I'm interested. You actually hit it out already, so what is it?
Yeah, okay. I ended it that it's hard to be consistent in CS2, in my opinion. And that is, again, like we're looking at I'm talking about pure tier 1, tier 2 Counter-Strike. Yes. And I think that because of I like the addition of smokes, for example, in CS2 and all that kind of stuff. But networking and the peaker advantage and the stuff we've already talked about. By the way, I picked this wrong point before the update came out, so it was just a few hours before update, and I sent it to you, Thorin. I mean OG, sorry. I need to refer you like that. And then
that's just a reference to a car name, by the way. You don't really have to do that. It's all good. It's all good.
I'm kidding. And then there's just something that is going on individually speaking in the game that kind of forces you to play differently depending on the opponent. And I think that creates such a variety of playstyles that you need to master that eventually you can't just keep up. And things like aim sometimes let you down. Things like nades, random bounces, all these kind of things are essentially pivoting to the fact that CS2 is just RNG at some points. Obviously, there's one team that I picked out that is kind of figuring it out, and I think that's the most consistent team of the year so far, and that is Navi. Obviously, they have 2 trophies. They could have had more. They could have had less, but they at least kind of try to address it, and I think their system is there to be praised. And I don't want to duck behind the word of system and blade, because I think generally the mechanics of the game are just way too unpredictable in a lot of sense. So you see the smoke and you don't exactly know the lineup, how to break the smoke with an HE. I understand it's supposed to be hard, but how many times do you see a failed break of the smoke outside wall on nuke?
Yep.
It's because we, as a players from CD spawn, we can't exactly see where the smoke landed, where's the middle of the smoke, and where we have to throw this HE. That's one thing. That's one of the many things. Obviously, Ancient, people hate to play Ancient because of the random fucking bounces of the bricks. Like, it makes no sense. Trajectory of the smoke sometimes, or a flash, or a molly just doesn't make any sense. Then we have edging of the smoke. I think that's straight up like a bad mechanic to have. Like, what's the point of a fucking molly? To flush something out, not to give space to player abusing it. And I'm just mentioning stuff tip of the iceberg, like something that you see on every single day if you watch Counter-Strike. And I think this is kind of heavily relying into fact that yes, Navi figured it out, but I only think they figured it out because they kind of spread this randomness among all of the players. Like, they make every single player responsible for their own role in a way that on Inferno, some player is going to be fucked, more times than the other, and then on some maps the other guy will pick up that flag, and they're kind of spreading it even. So that's why I think for Navi it's most consistent thing that they have done in CS2, and that is just approach to the game.
I feel like the way that, and I still go back to him as the progenitor of this seemingly random sort of behavior between teams is actually the Cadian style of calling with heroic, where you take more risks. You're trying to play off of just going for these kind of macro element plays where you're keeping one guy on a bomb site, going for a push somewhere else on the map with 3 of your guys, or flashing to retake middle, like just kind of doing something that's always really active. It's not only was it kind of random round to round, but it was always, I'd say you were kind of like 60-40 favored in some of these. Sometimes you're as high as like 80-20 favored, but sometimes you're walking right into a trap. I feel like that has really bled into everybody else's game style nowadays. So much so that in 2018, one of the things that was kind of hilariously beautiful about Astralis beating down on Liquid so many times is that it's because they both tried playing the same style. They tried playing this very default-centric, like play off of reads, try to bleed the clock, see like what's the right rotation in the middle of the round. Always try to play like a 1-1-1-1-1 style, maybe like 1 point of aggression on somewhere on the map, like it's like 1-1-2-1 or something like that. They would try to play this spread out style, and then just because by virtue of the fact that their system's a little bit more well outlined and they have slightly better protocols and their players are of a similar quality, they were able to find those edges consistently. And I'm going to also say this, like, this is just the doomer reality of it. It's like, it's MR12 also. Like, you just don't have as many rounds in order to make sure that, like, a couple of your early round game plans didn't go the right way, but then the experienced in-game leaders would come in and say, round 7, round 8, they would say, okay, wait, we need to do this now. And then you have a whole nother half of the half to play. You got 7 more rounds to play with this new discovery of what the other game plan is. And you take a good timeout. You say, this is what we've identified. This is how we're going to fix it. But now if you do that, it's like you could still lose the half 8-4. That's what sucks about it. So it's much harder to be consistent for that reason. And I feel like there is an era of parity that we are in right now because everybody that's in the top 6 has won like an S tier trophy this year, but also at the same time, that's I think that's partially because of MR12. I feel like I want to praise the fact that the level of CS that's being played is very high right now, but I can't say that with as much certainty as actually either other times and eras in Counter-Strike, because MR15 was sometimes the difference maker, where round 13, 14, 15 was where the men showed themselves from the boys.
I'll take the last point there. MR12 is definitely obviously providing more variance too, because as I always point out, you didn't just take 3 rounds off. That's pretty much going to be some gun rounds that you take it off, because we always start with the pistol. We always have the reset of the economy after the pistol. And then we even have the forceback nightmare, which at least they slightly tailored the CT economy to not be that bad anymore to fix. I can't believe how many years that was in the game where I told people, all you do is just make s1mple and Zero the most OP players to ever play CS. Because if I give them the hero AK after I do the bomb plant but lose the pistol on T side, then I just fucking give them the hero AK, and then the other guy's a FAMAS. Doesn't matter who he is, he's getting killed by fucking Zero next, isn't he? So that was stupid. But another thing is, people need to realise, this is where fans do this really weird thing I don't get. They always tell me, right? Like, I'll give you an example. When I did my video about s1mple, people were going, Thorin, you can't expect s1mple now to have those 1.4 ratings. Like, it's CS2. It's the other way around, you dumb fuck. It's MR12. It's easier to get the 1.4 rating. There's less rounds. He doesn't need to get as many kills in as many rounds, and he can't fuck up as much. So have you not noticed how in CS2, I hope people are going to realise this when I say it, notice we have good players having absurdly high, like record-breaking high numbers, but you know what else we have? Sometimes they shit the bed and have the lowest numbers you can imagine. In CSGO, that can't happen. If you're playing MR15 with the old map pool, with the old game, with all the things in it, if you have someone like Rops, a good game is like 1.25, a bad game is like 1.1. He doesn't do like a 0.8. That would be what Carrigan does in a game. He doesn't do a 1.4. That would be what Zero does in a game. Actually, it was a very consistent game. You could pretty much bet on how people are going to do. Like, I have to say, I do betting sometimes where I try doing the prop bets of who's going to get more kills. It's fucking insane to try and figure out, guys, because literally MR12 is so fucking spicy for the back and forth. Sometimes I've had ones where I'm like, I can't believe they're offering me these 2 players. One of them's a massive fragger, the other one's like just an okay player, and the okay player gets the kills because they win that map 13-7 or something, and it's not enough of a game yet. Then also on the side of like why I think I agree with the smokes angle, by the way. The smokes, even though in some ways they might have been a better addition, they were way more consistent in CSGO, obviously. And on things like Nuke, we all had it down to a science. We knew exactly where that smoke is, where it's landed. Is there a gap? If there is, maybe even the T's can identify it sometimes and figure it out. Then if you want to go with why Na'Vi is the consistent one, I'll give you an angle for why I think it is. Because if you look at some of the players that are really smart and can make their own decisions in the game and adapt on the fly, they have 3 people who can do that. 2 players and the coach. The coach can do it already. He gives them a fucking playbook. If people don't know, the most OP thing about the playbook is this. This is the part people don't get. You know when Taz cheated on camera and pointed at a strat for G2? If you're Blade and you actually have a dossier, you could just point to that in the real timeout. You don't then have to have that whole, you don't have to break the whole concept out there. You basically tell them we're going to this part or check page 7. That's OP as fuck. That's shorthand. Now you've saved yourself time in the timeout to talk about other things as well. Maybe a micro movement, maybe a call to LXCB. But you can tell the guy who's playing this anchor spot, look, I want you to do it this way, like I said on that one. Then there's also, you've got Bit, as we pointed out on the Austin episode. This guy is pulling off like fucking chess master moves in the game. Like, he's just doing like lurks that are fucking god tier. And some of them just like, that will literally like win you rounds you're not supposed to win, because you get the lurk off, you get the creep off, you get a free kill. By the way, the amount of times I see him just get a free kill on the side of someone's head is mental. Like, normally you don't get that. The CT's always waiting, watching the angle you're coming through. And then lastly, it's got to be LXCB. LXCB's most famous skill is to take over the game, to micromanage, to make mid-round calls. So when you have all of these together, no one else has that. Like, you know what? I let Maui spit all that wax lyrical shit about Neo. Never really bought it myself. I need to wait and see. I don't think he's on a Blade level, mate. I've seen how bad the strat's got again. They got to Roban levels now, you know what I mean? So I don't know that he's on the Blade level. No one has it all together. You might have Carrigan, but then here's the thing. Rops himself hasn't been Rops for a while now. Maybe Bit's better at that. You definitely don't have a Blade on that team. So you look at some of the teams. I don't think everyone else has it all combined like Na'Vi.
I feel like Blade also, I mean, not Blade. I feel like Neo, when he came into FaZe, was able to identify. This is what always happens. I mean, coaches come into a team and they usually, well, I'd say it's 50-50. They either usually stand back and they kind of see, what do I need to do? And then they help out in whatever way they can. Or they come in with a lot of setups, new strategies, executes, what have you, and that's what Neo did, and that's what they told us, or that's what FaZe was saying when he was coming in, and that's why they were getting top 2 in all these events in a row, and that's where my defense of him comes from. Like, they were legitimately saying this stuff like, yes, Neo gave us new strategies, we're implementing those new strategies, but I don't know if he's still doing that, you know, like, I feel like the honeymoon of coming into the coach role, like, it's just the least glamorous role. You know, you never know how hard this guy's working. You never know how much he's bringing to the table. We're only going off of what his players are actually saying. And at this point, well, they're not really praising him as much as they used to be. So I don't know if he's doing as much.
I just know that for Kerrigan, or the last thing I heard from him is that, this is probably his words, but he said, leave the tactical side of Counter-Strike that we're playing to me. No one else kind of touches it, and don't question my calls, and we're just going to go and do what we said. And then if it fails, we talk about it later. But the tactical aspect of the game is always on me, and that's what Kerrigan said.
No, fair enough. Right, okay. Maui, what is your bad point?
Yeah, my bad point is that it's a.
By the way, you do realize we could even make that a meme for all the haters. It's like we even designed a show where Maui's asked to make a bad point. Like, go ahead, keep going.
This is a double-edged sword, and I want to know if are we talking about the other side of this later too? But either way,
no,
okay.
I didn't have anything.
I'll just get it out. I'll just get it out right here. Is that we all know that s1mple is coming into Falcons at this point, and my bad point is just that SunPayus was the best player on Falcons. Like that's what's criminal about this whole move, is that for the entirety of 2024, with SunPayus playing with Falcons, his worst rated event, and let me remind you, in multiple events, is Falcons coming in last place and just bombing out in the final series. And there's many reasons that somebody like SunPayus would be inconsistent. His worst event this year is a 1.05 rating. Every single event this entire year has been above average. I'm not going to say he's like a top 5 opper in the world, but he's clearly good. He's clearly a good opper for this team. He has been actually the most consistent player for them in a dupreeh who people were hyping up to get onto Falcons and everything like that. Like, they have found no success with him. He's even been streaky on that team himself. Magisk is a guy that I still rate pretty highly as an individual. I've seen what he does with very few resources in a late round situation, like an anchoring position, but even he's been inconsistent. Modern, all over the place. I feel like on certain maps he's great, on other maps he's just fraudulent. And Snappy, let's not even get started on that. But SunPayus has been, by and large, the best player on Falcons this year. He was definitely the last person I would have even considered replacing. But this opportunity came for Falcons that was too hard to pass up, with s1mple on the market and then wanting more firepower. And that is one of the few moves, if you're Falcons, where you have the budget to get s1mple on loan. You need to take a risk in a certain direction. And so in a weird way, I don't even necessarily blame the GMing from Falcons on this one, because I feel like they needed to do something. But I do feel like SunPayus is now without a team for the major cycle, when it's so obvious that he should be competing on a team. And I'll just throw out, like, one easy name right now would be Dexter on Heroic. Like, he hasn't really seeded in to be as strong as I would have expected. And SunPayus has just been flat out a better opper, so he's not playing somewhere like there. Or really, he could probably improve a couple teams in the top 15, top 20. And there's no reason that he should be on the bench when in all honesty, if you looked at like dupreeh and Modern right now, like, I don't think they would get a gig as easily as SunPayus, but it's just a shame that that's the move that Falcons went with, because SunPayus he's been a good player. He has not been the problem for this Falcons team.
Yeah, and what I've heard as well about SunPayus is that, well, let's start with Falcons actually. So I think there's a reason that s1mple is coming on loan, and I think that the Falcons are looking for an AWPer for 2025.
Imagine that. So what if there was somebody other good AWPer they could possibly get if they didn't? Oh, no, mind. Keep on. My bad. I was just thinking of some other names that might be out there. You know.
Yeah, so that's the reason behind the loan, and I think SunPayus. I've heard from again sources close to me that when he was supposed to be cut from ends at IM Dallas, which they won, I think there were some problems, attitude problems.
I heard he was spicy behind the scenes.
Yeah. He was like difficult to work with, I would say, and this is why I heard this at Blast, and it kind of then made sense with the performance that he showed at Blast. Maybe he already knew that he's being replaced by s1mple. Obviously, s1mple was tweeting it or like hinting it on Telegram. Maybe that's the whole reason why he was kind of, I don't know, not okay with it. And then he was, I don't want to say throwing the game or tanking the game, but he was definitely not having that spark anymore that is needed from the Oprah to like, I want to win this game. And he was just lacking it. I feel like that's again, like sources, there are the rumors, but also when it comes to his future, I think it's actually kind of making sense, obviously, to reunite in Heroic, but also come back to Spain. Alex is as well off the nip, and I know Maui, you're loving the guy, but I mean, there are maybe some narratives that creating a top Spanish team might be on the cards here, especially with So being in top 10 right now, and Portugal and Spain has like
they can share the language, I believe.
They don't share the language. They have similar
language.
It's like they have like always
I think it's like 80% similar though, isn't it?
Yeah, okay. The thing is, like, there was always a derby between Portugal and Spain when it comes to Counter.
Oh, that's going to make him want to make a Spanish team since Portugal.
They're seeing that So is actually they were beating them before, and So made it into top 10. Let's go back in Spain. Let's create a top 10 team. That might be another angle to look at because I don't know how available he's going to be in terms of Heroic. But obviously, Dexter, I think SanPayus coming in for Dexter would be an obvious improvement. But as I said, there might be some bad blood going on from that Dallas time back in the day from ends.
I'll start at the end there, right? On the thing about Dexter, how dare you all take my beloved Dexter? He barely, by the way, he's only had something mental like 2 months of actual play in the fucking game. Like, but you're all acting like he played all of CS2 and he just shit at the game. Like, first of all, for someone who played like 2 or 3 months or something, he's not bad. Like, he's actually had some fucking good performances too. Secondly, I'll just throw this out there. If he has to be replaced in Heroic, okay, you know what? As you see from how I talk about the Heroic admins, I'm going to be, by the way, Heroic's the best team out of the tournament along with Mongols. In theory, I'm going to have to praise them, so I'll say now, fuck Heroic. I think they're dog shit. I'm going to be absolutely all over their team if they do shit at that event. I'm going to be fucking roasting it. Oh, that Heroic admin, haha, I'm doing memes. Watch me do memes on the desk, motherfucker. That's right. Again, that Finnish guy, tap, Thorin, later fucking... I don't even know, whatever the fuck, that's actually a real Finnish name. I had to come up with off the top of the end there. It's hard. No one knows them all. It's all Moomin language, innit? No one fucking knows it, mate. So, basically, if he has to be removed from Heroic, I'm okay with that. Here's why. Because right now, there's a million fucking Russian teams, and tell you what, he'd fucking dominate in one of those. So he can go to one of those too. You know what, maybe he just plays in Cloud9 next to something like that. We can sort it out. It's okay. Hit the line. We'll make it work. Then also... on this actual topic, though, the SunPayus one, because I'm going to do the SunPayus side first. I agree. What I can't handle about this is actually what tilts me. What tilts me in CS is what's called narrative whiplash. The joke is that sounds like a show I would make, like the title of a show. Then coming new on LFN, narrative whiplash with Thorin. But actually, it's what I hate the most, because here's the problem, right? I'm not going to be gaslit or retconned. You all have read Reddit and HLTV. Before this move... their take was SunPayus is shit and washed in CS2. Everyone on Falcons sucks was the take. That was the take. What they used to do is maybe they'd do a Maui take and go, I still sort of believe Magus could make it if he can get to the next lineup, you know. But everyone's like, Snappy shit at calling. Dupree, look, they liked him at the beginning, but I noticed they went off that pretty quickly. Everyone thinks Madden's shit just because of the roles he does, because they're bozos who don't know the fucking game. Obviously, and then when it comes to SunPayus, I think a lot of people were just like, he's not that good, because all they remember is him on like stage in CSGO, like fucking out Open Zewu and shit like that over and over again, which obviously doesn't happen now. He's not even bloody on stage half the time. But I think you can tell people didn't watch Falcons games, because there's a reason why they would have so many maps that were super close against like the top 10, by the way. They didn't win them because they're not a good team, but SunPayus was the reason why. Like, actually, I agree with you, Maui. He's like a top 10 AWPer. He's not a top 5, and the problem is, look, in CS, people only give a fuck about the top 5 because the gun isn't as powerful as it was before. It doesn't dominate the game. But I always thought he was good, so I can't handle it. Now everyone's suddenly the biggest SunPayus fan ever. Everyone hated on Falcons, said the lineup shit, they should replace everyone. But now, because you're all right, statistically he is the best, it's inconceivable he could ever be removed. And here's the problem I have. I said this in my video. I agree, right this second. The second s1mple walks in, SunPayus is probably the better AWPer. But the joke is, it's s1mple, bro. If there's anyone has literally defied like every aspect of the game and what esports means, it is s1mple. I actually think, if you don't know, I've followed all of esports for like, at this point in time, about almost like 28 years or something mad. He is literally, I think, the best player I've ever seen in any game ever. Like, the only people I can put on his level are people like Korean StarCraft players that played like 14 hours a day or some shit like that. Because even Quake players, remember, their game might be hard, but they play like 100 people over and over again every tournament. s1mple had to play millions of people. That's who was competing to beat him in the game over all those years. And he's the only person where he never got taken out of the game. The game didn't forget s1mple. s1mple forgot the game because he had all shit going on in his life. And then Na'Vi had all sorts of drama going on. And even at the end, he tried to give it a go. Remember, with the international lineup, he just didn't like the way it went. And they went into a new game. So he said, I'm peacing out. I'm not doing it for now. I've told the story in the past. I think he was going to come back after the major. I think that's why he was there. I think it was going to be announced when they got banged in the quarters or whatever, or semis. Like, s1mple's back. It's okay, guys. We've kicked that wonderful guy you don't like, or him as a rifler, whichever angle he wanted to go with. So all I'll say is this. I get it. It's possible this could fail and SunPayus could be the better pick. But the difference is the upside is crazy if it works. And if it works, everyone will look so silly in a year from now saying we should have kept SunPayus. Like, it will just look like such an ass. I'm even going to say, I think there's a world where one day Na'Vi stops winning and then they go, did we really let s1mple walk out the door and go to another fucking team that's now kicking our head in? So I think, like, I just can't handle the whiplash of that. Then also, there's the whole thing that people keep missing this detail. This is one thing I'm getting really bored of in esports. People don't read. They don't read the news posts. They read the headline. They go, s1mple joining Falcons. Some of them don't even know it was on loan. Some think he's just joined Falcon. Oh my God, they're signing Nico. It hasn't happened yet, by the way. And s1mple. And then, fuck, what if they had MonteCristo and Jimfat? And then Kickstarter. And then, bro, he's joining on loan. That's genius, by the way. That means you didn't pay 3 million. Think about this. Every other team, this is where Kassad's right. People can only conceive of people paying a pure buyout of the biggest amount. They can never conceive of a structured deal with bonuses, or you tell the team, I'll sign him for 2 million, but if he doesn't make any majors, 500,000 doesn't go to, you can do all sorts of clever business things that they do in sports. Well, similarly, everyone thought the only option was, well, he's never coming back because who's going to pay 3 million? Well, Falcons isn't. What they're doing, like geniuses, is they're going to lease it. They're going to see what the car's like before they buy. They're going to lease him. By the way, I imagine for a lot of money, but not $3 million. They're going to lease him for a major cycle. Genius, by the way. If it doesn't work out for a major, you just go, see ya. Oh, you know what? It's ran out and we're going to be talking to other people now. Perfect. You get to essentially not commit long-term to this deal with, by the way, yes, one of the most difficult to work with players in the history of Counter-Strike. But the joke is, it's worth it because then he becomes one of the most difficult players to work with for the fucking opponent. Hence why the upside is there. And also, then after all that, if it works, maybe you do buy him. But now you're so much more confident in putting those millions of dollars in there. Then I also put STYKO undercut this one. Sadly, he's smart, so he actually saw this angle. Guys, think it through. It's even more genius since he's coming back as AWPer. What we're going to find is, I said this in my video, but guys, it's way better he comes back as AWPer than Rifler, because as Rifler, you can hide. You can pad your stats. As the AWPer, there's no blame F of AWPers if you all hate blame F. I think he's mega, but there's no way James tries, but it's only a Serbian guy fucking with the formula that allows that to look good. The eye test never checks out for people like James when they bait. Like, when you bait with an AWP, it looks utterly terrible. When you get the gun saved for you and you bait, it looks terrible. When you buy a glass cannon, it looks terrible if you're not s1mple. When s1mple plays, you know he isn't going to play like that. He's going to be s1mple and be aggressive. And so you'll know within 2 months if he can do it or not. And if he starts doing it, you'll go, holy shit, this is the best move ever. But that's the genius part STYKO just said there. Imagine this world, Maui. Imagine it doesn't work out at the major and they don't want to commit to s1mple. And Nico goes, okay, I'm willing to join the team, signs his contract, he joins. Oh, if only there was an AWPer I played with recently that we could bring over too. It's right there. You just bring MonteCristo, don't you? That's when you do MonteCristo move. But here's the other thing. in that scenario, like, it'll make sense on both ends, and you won't ever have the regret if you're Falcons of we could have had s1mple. You'll know that, like, oh, it wasn't worth it. I tried it. We had him for a few months. We gave him like a little bit of time. He had to practice, all the rest of it. So I actually think that part's genius. I think that was really well done. Yeah, I actually think this is... I agree with your point, by the way. SunPayus was the best on that team. I don't think he deserved to be caught in isolation. But the problem is, literally, you know how Cadian said that line? Oh, I'd only give up the AWP for 4 people. Well, I'd only kick SunPayus for 4 or 5 people. The problem is, one of them's coming in. And he's coming in, try before you buy. If it doesn't work, we just get an even better AWPer. So I think that angle actually sort of works out. So I agree with you. I don't think it's bad. By the way, if you are SunPayus on the STYKO thing, we'll just address that quickly. I know what you mean, STYKO. It would be cool to have like a Spanish team. Obviously, he's really good. You could do it. You could have the national... Here's the only problem, though. What I think I know about SunPayus, what I imagine I perceive about his personality, I don't think he wants a Spanish salary to play in a Spanish team. I believe he wants the moolah. So I think he's going to go to a team international personally, because I think he wants to get paid 10 to 20k. I don't think he wants to chill. And by the way, he obviously just, that's one thing I'll say I'm sorry for him is he did just lose that massive Falcons fucking money. Like you said, the heroic angle's a good one. Reunite with Saw. It hasn't worked so far with Dexter. That's a player I would upgrade Dexter for potentially, because you imagine it would work immediately. Yeah, there we go. Right. Now we will move on to my bad point. And because of who I am, this is why I'm going to be doing that desk. This is why I am straight fire. Because you know how last year I did that reflection series with Snax, and I was really respectful in it, and I asked him all about his career and how's the in-game leader. Well, you know what? The bad point for this fucking show, because that's right, you always have to understand this, and he gets the game, is the interview with Thorin ain't the same Thorin that's on fucking shows, and he isn't the same guy in real life, Duncan. So the guy on shows is just going to say, my bad point is all the Snax narratives. Because, bro, you would think for real he just won the major. That is the way people just reacted. You would think he won the major and he like dropped a 30 bomb and won a 1v4 to win it. It's insane, these narratives. Like, first of all, people for real are doing the narrative of like, apologise because you said he wouldn't be good. What am I apologising for, cocksucker? Like, I still have that same opinion. You do realise, by the way, this is like the Huxley one. This is what's going to actually... I can't take it, please. I have to get out of there. This isn't even real. None of this is real. This is like if you saw season 1 of Altered Carbon. There's an episode, I think it's episode 4, where he's getting like tortured inside his mind by someone who's trying to break him and sort of like inside of a dream or whatever. I feel like that's what esports is, because I just got out of that whole Huxley thing where I kept trying to point out to you that Huxley isn't even a bad IGL. I never thought that. I just thought in CSGO, he had the craziest lineup of really good players for the roles I think I've seen in the latter years of the game, and they could absolutely win you games that weren't based off a genius call or an amazing strat call. And so sometimes I just thought to myself, I'd rather, guess how this is aged, that was Alexi B, or that was, look, you'll say this is aged, but that was Snappy or something, Shooty or whatever. I would rather one of those people made you not just a good team, but like the best. Now, the problem with the Snax one is it's going to be the Huxley narratives all over again. The logic's going to go, because he's won, he must be a really good IGL. He must be a really good IGL for this team, and he must be the one. That's why they're all doing these things, which I don't get whatsoever. Because if I look at their team, you're right back in the fucking Huxley zone, except without, at least Huxley had a baseline of calls I could see that looked legit. He had adaptations that looked legit. He had a map pool that was half decent. If I'm Snax, right? So I have Malbs, who runs onto sites on T-side sometimes, clearly not as part of a strat, 1 bullets, 2 people in the head. That isn't a strat. For anyone else, that isn't replicatable. If you didn't see that stat thing that was shown on Twitter recently, his headshot percentage is fucking mental. Like, that isn't Snax telling him to do that, by the way. And it wasn't the lack of someone with headshot aim and gamer legion that didn't make his strats work at the top level. Then you've got Nico. We've just seen Nico could even IGL with Huxley's strats, be a star player and win an event without Huxley there or Snax there. So we actually, if anything, we've sort of tested that Nico plays spoiler, here's why I think the Snax pickup isn't terrible. Because I actually think Nico himself is so smart as a player intuitively in the game. He doesn't want a lot of man management. The joke is that's probably the real reason he doesn't fuck with Alexi and Carrigan. He doesn't want them to take over and tell him where to go and what to do. He wants to make that call because he's Nico. The problem he has, though, I'll always say this to him, is the other players aren't Nico, though. Hunter isn't Nico, bro. Some of the other players need the guy who's going to lead you in that way. Then I'll say similarly, this is why I can't give him too much credit. MonteCristo was doing this shit before. If anything, I actually think MonteCristo looks a little bit subdued with Snax compared to how he was with Huxley. I think actually Huxley probably did a good job with MonteCristo. Because with the MonteCristo angle, the reason I say MonteCristo is the best player in the world is because he looks like he has crazy... This is where he's like s1mple. He looks like he has his own agency completely. He doesn't look like wonderful. There's no universe Wonderful's even allowed to make the moves m0NESY makes in a game. Like, he actually has the real sort of like the fucking like the line on the map of where he's going basically and what time and he's getting there. That doesn't exist for m0NESY because he's m0NESY. So to me, I don't really know what genius people are saying. I will say I've got some forthcoming content where someone tells me a bit about Snax's past calling in a past team. And they did say things like he can see like some interesting angles in the game and he'll call ballsy plays and he's willing to call the old tier 1 players, even if he has lesser players, which by the way is probably why it wasn't as good in Game Legion and that it wasn't terrible. So I don't know. I just can't handle that people have sort of taken this as like, cause he won, everything said before was wrong. And notice, we always make this point, it's like predictions. It doesn't matter if the prediction's wrong, if Pimp made analysis which logically made sense and was based on real things. It just means that time it didn't happen. There's variance in the game. So I want to see where you two are at on this one, where you at on the Snax narratives. Come on, STYKO. I thought, by the way, you did a very fair job, considering you're on the fucking Blast desk, of actually sort of like putting a little bit of cooling water on the narrative so it didn't go too crazy on this one. So where you at on this topic?
Yeah, I definitely... Well, I agree with you, and also what Apex said during the blast was pretty nice. That they were up against G2, and they were thinking like the firepower is stronger than previous G2, but the tactical part is just lacking. And I loved it because he low-key just saying that the Snax pickup just didn't make them better when it comes to strats or calling, but he's low-key praising mauls for the pickup.
Yes.
Because mauls is doing something that Nexa would never.
Yes.
Like it's incomparable how good of a pickup that is, and that is kind of also shadowing the fact that Snax got picked up, because you're looking at it as a
well, it's like with Huxley, right? Remember, Huxley and JKS got picked. I tell you, Alexi B told me this in his interview. He wishes he'd had a shot with JKS. Like, how can he compare us when he had JKS and I had fucking Jax? So it's the same concept, right? It looks like the IGL did everything.
Yeah, and for the Snax point of view, I think he's a mega creative player, but I feel like the creativity goes down when he's actually playing the game. I think when he's on empty server, that's when he's like kind of in the zone and he gets to create the like situations, protocols, smoke plays, all that kind of things that he was known for even in CSGO. But once the game hits, he's doing just predictable stuff where it's bound to happen that if you're not doing something a little bit crazy or something a little bit risky to create an edge for the rest of your team, it's just going to down spiral in you having bad performance. And this is what we've noticed in Blast. I think first day of the event, I came in and I'm saying to Pimp, like, yo, Snax has like 21 games in a row that he has not had positive KD. And at that point, it just became a meme for the rest of the tournament. We were just walking into the green room and thinking, did Snax have yesterday positive KD? And we're like, no. And everyone is low-key like cheering, okay, the streak is alive. And like, that's the thing. I understand the point of view that you just cannot outfrag people in your team if you have m0NESY, mauls, and Nico. But at the same time, this is very much confidence issues from what people were saying in the interviews on G2 side. And in the final, they were giving free frags, like eco frags to Snax to just build that confidence. And I think that's, again, dangerous mindset to have and a dangerous thing to do. You shouldn't just set up your player to gain confidence. The confidence should be coming from within the performance of the team, especially when you're IGL. Like, don't give IGL the eco frags and then tell me that the hate that he's getting from social media or analyst desk is not affecting him, because it clearly is. Like, you're making something that you wouldn't otherwise be doing. And
he also sometimes has the gun when other people don't. That's going to make people hate on you if you die, mate. That's a real thing.
Yeah, and the angle that you said about Nico being smart and not liking to be micromanaged, it kind of also stands with what I want to say is that I think what G2 did at this event cannot be replicated if the G2 stays the same way it is. Like, they are not doing some crazy double fakes. They're not doing something out of ordinary. They're not creative enough as Kerrigan is, for example, in pressure rounds. They're just going and brute forcing their way through because of the aim and pure skill and clutches. And to my mind, like, if Snax doesn't pick up the slack when it comes to individual form, I don't think G2 is going to lift another trophy this year, and this might come back and bite me in the ass, but it's just not unreasonable take at all. Like, I feel like this, I don't want to say this was a fluke, but it was like more of all the other teams are underperforming rather than G2 are overperforming. I think G2 played just a standard Counter-Strike and they carried themselves through with a trio of mauls, Nico, and m0NESY. So yeah, I think this is not sustainable enough for G2.
I posted that on Twitter, the apology to Snax, and I feel like I need to differentiate this again. I've talked about this on stream on YouTube videos. I'll say it here too. Like the persona I bring for the stream is just like pure entertainment, and I know that people might think that's not like becoming of an analyst to like have these different personas, but it's like you should fit the product that you're actually on, which is why Twitter is the way that it is for me. Streaming is what it is for me. YouTube is different too. Podcasts are what they are too. And I mean, the apology to Snax, it's actually, in some ways, it's actually even more tongue-in-cheek than the Nafany apology letter. Let's just put it like that. That was like a full-on bit that I was going with there. And for Snax, I actually want to. I said on one of the, I couldn't find it, but like one of the earliest podcasts I did with the Snax move is that I criticized it. And I said one of the worst parts about this move was that this team can still win the off tournament because there's so much firepower on the team. And with just the way CS2 is played, if you have 3 players that are just exceptional at their roles in terms of fragging ability, then you can win a tournament like this. And for all intents and purposes, this is kind of the perfect tournament to do it. Like Blast's fall finals, spring finals, world finals, it's an 8-team tournament. You know, by the end of the tournament, you're playing like 10 maps, maybe, or like 12, maybe a little bit more than that. Like MonteCristo played 14 maps at this tournament, for example, and even the players on Navi played 11 maps. That's with playing the BO5 Grand Finals. Like you can make it through with an exceptionally small sample size of games, and the likelihood that you can just kind of upset is much higher because you just have to do it less. Like the first matchup was not hard. Second, I mean, I think the fact that they beat Vitality and Navi back to back is extremely impressive for G2. But I wouldn't say that it's necessarily because Snax has unlocked whatever it needs to be to win tournaments. Like, are they a top 3 team for me to win the major? Yeah, I would put them with Navi and Vitality because I think something like this could unfold once again, especially given the fact that you're going to play a Swiss system into potentially just 3 BO3s in the playoffs. And yeah, that's like how a lot of tournaments run. Like you can win tournaments like that. It's not like we're playing the Premier League where you have to be tested over like, you know, a 50-game span and whoever has the best win record. I would give that to Navi in a heartbeat. If I was just saying all of the teams in the top 20 play a round robin for like 20 times, I'm going to take Navi in that simulation every time right now. Like they're just way better in terms of consistency. Off days don't seem to affect them as much. Their floor is much higher as a team. Like this G2 team definitely, like, come on, if Malbs isn't getting a double entry onto a ancient bomb site, like what are we working with here? Like what's the fallback
that
plan?
map is the most egregious
call?
one too. That's the one where he just fucking like makes them like twice as good as they should be on that map.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like Donk's the same thing with Spirit, but the thing is with Spirit, who do you have in the back lines? You got Magix and you got a passive Opera and Shiro versus G2. Oh, you mean that Nico and MonteCristo are following this guy who didn't get the entry? I think you're still going to be fine most of the time. So I'm not really too worried about it. And you could make the thing is, like, Kerrigan said it himself. Like, we praise Kerrigan a lot. I still think he's one of the best in-game leaders in the world, top 3. He said himself, like, you know, he was able to call differently once Rops came in versus Olaf Meister. Like, he could call different strats. They don't need to try to be outbraiding all the time. They can be a little bit more brute force because Kerrigan knows exactly how to adapt his playbook to the players that he has. And that's not a slight to any of these in-game leaders. Like, it's the same kind of thing where fans almost like will use this line as if like you can't criticize teams, where they say for Vitality at the Paris Major, you can only play who's in front of you, and at the same time, like they want to praise Snax, but it's like, well, he can only call with the players that are in front of him because when he called with Gamer Legion, they were bad. I don't want to go through this retconning of like oh, they were doing well. They didn't qualify for the major, and they also had the worst T-side round win percentage of all top 20 teams. Like when Snax was calling, and I know that he was trying to do too much, but that's an inability to recognize with the players that he had on Gamer Legion that he was calling a style that didn't suit them. Like, you need to probably simplify your playbook, you know, make things just easier for them. Like, one stage this, second stage this, like just make it super easy. But he's trying to be this like 200 300 IQ mastermind because and like he's trying to play the game like it's chess when like he only has checkers in front of him. But now you have players that you can kind of play any style and it's gonna work. Like, you could really put in so many different in-game leaders, and we saw it with Like, you can talk about this winning a tournament thing with the fact that, dude, Nico was calling and they won a tournament too. Like, is Nico as good of an in-game leader as Snax? Like, I don't like the argument doesn't really work that that Snax is some great in-game leader when Nico did the same thing and he had Nexa and Stewie 2K. If anything, from the results this year, I think Nico is still a better in-game leader than Snax. I still think that, because if he's able to win with Nexa and Stewie versus Malves, like, what? And he's also degrading his own performance because he's calling. Then that to me is like the one-to-one comparison where I still think I still think Nico's in-game leader would just be better than this if they got another fragger. I actually do.
By the way, another episode of Narrative Whiplash. You are the same fucking fans who kept saying we can never cut Huxley unless it is literally Carrigan, Apex, or like, I can't remember the third one with Chopper coming through the door. You were the fans that said that to us for literally like a fucking 8 months or something mental. You told us we were the haters. Now you're like, Huxley? Fuck Huxley. I don't even think you should be IGL of Australis. Like, I can't handle it. The Narrative Whiplash is crazy. It's fucking crazy, and it's so wild. Right, okay, let's move on from that. Let's go on to the ugly point. So, STYKO, what's your ugly point? It's more whining about the game, but come on.
Yeah. We've been circling around it for the whole episode, but I'm just going to mention it from a different point of view. My ugly take is that CS2 still feels like an unfinished game. 1 year after the release. And as I said, we've been talking about it throughout the episode. But what I want to say is that I don't understand how we're in the state of the real game, competitive esports game, the most watched. And we are relying so much on community to fix the shit inside of the game. So I feel like, once the boost bug, for example, got discovered on the Twitter, like how to fix it, what is causing it, it was fixed immediately after, like the next update within a week. That's great. But how the hell are we relying on random people on Twitter? No offense to the guy who found it, but just random community members to find a way, and not only find a way how to replicate it, but also need to find a freaking solution. Like, you have to hand feed the solution to the developers in order to fix it. And I understand, yes, they're busy. They're moving to Deadlock or whatever it is. Like, it's a Valve thing. I don't care. I don't care. But please just be a little bit like self-accountable for whatever is happening. I understand that they are creating a network like related fixes, but it's just way too much that they rely on community to fix the damn game. And there's just way too many bugs since the release, and they would be still in since the release. There are competitively like game-breaking bugs. Seeing that, for example, on Ancient, you are running in the water, and I can tell you for a fact, tier 2 teams, tier 3 teams in open qualifiers, they abuse the hell out of the bug when you're running through the water and you have all over the map 150 FPS. This is just a fact, and people are abusing it, and this is just competitive integrity at a breaking point, because this is something that is literally inside Counter-Strike and anyone can do it, but some people have morals and they don't. But some people want to like win at any cost, and we've seen that before with coach bugs and stuff like that. So people are obviously going to cheat if you give them opportunity to do so, and it's undetectable. You have to have like a literally banned, for example, netgraph should be banned, like FPS counter should be banned by that margin, and that creates another.
If you don't know, by the way, it's because when you lag, you can see on the little netgraph, you'll be able to see if they're running through the water, essentially, right? Just for people who don't know the bug, right?
Yeah, so it's apparently very heavy for the game to understand that some models in the game are running through the water, and the easiest fix would be just straight up remove the water. Yes. And this can be like a hot fix, like we have removed the water until we find a fix for this. And that could be it. Okay, it will look out of the place, but at least it will be under construction or work in progress kind of thing. It's a hot fix, Band-Aid, and we're looking for a proper fix. But this is happening just way too much, and I hate it. And there could be a list of things that I could bring up right now, and it just doesn't make any sense how incompetent Valve is in a lot of things.
I'm glad you bring this up. I mean, I praise the fact that they've made some little fixes in my good point earlier, but I just want to remind all the people that vouch for Valve in the way that they do that the average Valve employee makes just north of $1.3 million per person. And based off of leaks that we've heard behind the scenes, ZywOo makes less than that annually from salary alone. And I'm going to tell you right now, we're not getting the five ZywOos of software engineering that are working on this game right now. Okay. And everybody also loves to talk about the fact that like every Valve employee is so smart. And Valve said themselves, like, there's only probably like 10,000 people on the planet that could work for us. Motherfuckers, like, you don't have the ZywOo of programming over there right now. And if you did, this game would be in a better shape than it is right now because somebody would have fixed things faster than they have. And so I just wish that they could for once just like take and nobody can do this. Like nobody will ever be able to take a step back, and like it's just natural for companies to be like this. Like you're always looking at revenue, you're always looking at like profits and everything like that. And they're just gonna, for whatever reason, I mean, it is just business again. They're not hiring enough people to work on Counter-Strike or even communicate with the community at this point. And the only real drip feed we get of some kind of information is a guy that's like a dev that also happens to run the Twitter account, and I doubt that's even really factored into his annual salary. You know, he's seemingly just doing it out of the good of his heart. And so in some ways I empathize with him because he's probably receiving so many vicious replies every single day, and he is a human after all. Like he's probably getting the worst DMs of all time, honestly. But I will say, like, the lack of improvements, the fact that it's so up to the community to troubleshoot these sorts of problems is just like you're outsourcing your own problems in your game, which is generating hundreds of millions of dollars every single year from all these case openings to literal just like fans. And I don't even think they're necessarily hiring all these fans. Like the recent hires from Valve have been the Risk of Rain developers who are now working on Deadlock. And so they're not even like, I don't even know, I haven't heard of any cases at least of them getting these troubleshooters who are finding all these bugs and sufficiently, they're not employing them. They're not Valve employees, because if they were, they would have found these things earlier. And I just get really frustrated with that fact. And I really think that CS2, yeah, like the bright side and the glass half full of this is like it's been a better state than CS:GO was after its first year, but that doesn't mean like it should be. It doesn't mean I'm not looking for the same amount of ramp up time that we had for CS:GO to be in its state that it was 3-4 years after it came out. I would rather they learn from the mistakes and work a little bit faster on these things, especially with how much this game has become a literal money printer for them.
And you can also think about it like at least incentivize the bug hunters or whatever you want to call it somehow. Obviously, they don't even get like shout out in the patch notes, which have whatever, no one cares. But you can think, dude, just something that came to my mind is just create for example, skin that you will send just specifically to that person, and it's untradeable. It's just a commemoration of, let's say, it's a Desert Eagle called Fix or something like that, or Fix Dev, and only that person will be able to play with it, and it's untradeable. And this will make that people will suddenly look for not only bugs, because that's easy job, but we are looking for a freaking solution, and we're hand feeding the solution to the devs. Fix the game for us, because right now there's no incentivization other than we are looking to make the game better for everyone, but there's no like personal kind of incentive to it. And this could be a really simple fix that people with 1.3 million annual salary could really easily do, right?
On that point about the bugs, by the way, that is one thing that also drives me crazy, because the current Valve approach, their actions suggest they believe that pros don't know better than them and that pros don't need to be consulted. And actually, you've even seen people like Rops allude to this, the idea that they've tried contacting Valve and they got ignored initially. Now, I do notice as soon as that like blew up and went everywhere all over, magically got a reply all of a sudden instantly. That shows the system's broken. The fact he has to get the whole internet to fucking hate on you before you answer his fucking email, even though, by the way, him and Monacy like fucking live inside. They're like fucking Cypher from the fucking Matrix movie, where they can just read the Matrix without even like needing any like fucking code shit. They just live in the game, bro. So as a result, like the idea pros have to fix it. Bro, you are making billions off this game. 1 million bazillion people play the game. Obviously your system for reporting bugs is broken. If somehow all those millions of players can't get the bug info to you that you would change it, it has to actually be ROPS from the top down of CS, professional scene, tell you something is broken. That's insane. insane to me because some of these are like wide open bugs. These are enormous flaws in the game. They're not even minor cosmetic things or very minor issues. Okay, I don't have much more to say than that. Everyone always knows I'm actually on a very different side of the CS2, CSGO thing than Richard. I know his is also a lot of meta commentary about like fans being entitled, which I do agree with. I just do think CS2 is worse than CSGO, and I hate how finished CSGO was. And I also hate that angle of like, but remember CSGO hadn't made billions. Did you know that? When it launched, it was like a brand new small game with a small player size, small viewership, wasn't even being featured in the top of the big esports. None of the initial conditions are the same. And logically, surely you learned from that. Like, that's like going, but a human baby, when born, would take like 8 years to even be able to go to school and then do it. Yeah, that's not what we're doing now. If anything now, because you've already leveled up from that, this is more like fucking the xenomorph, isn't it? You pop it into someone, it takes all their DNA, it bursts out the chest of CSGO, and it should instantly be adult. It should just be a better version in some ways. Should have taken all the things there and improved upon it. Surely it's a fucking sequel. Remember, you also got away with this, because you even said this back in the day. CSGO wasn't called CS2. It was a different game, wasn't it? This is the literal sequel to Counter-Strike, for fuck's sake. Of course you have to build on what you did good. Then lastly, this had nothing to do with CS2 thing. I just forgot this straight fire joke as we were talking about that shit with G2, which is Maui's analogy that Snax was trying to play chess when he only had checkers pieces, and then he went, but now he has, and then he quickly changed his mind because he realized, right, this is where I'm going to go with it. Obviously, the best pieces in chess, it's not even like he just has like a pawn and a knight and a fucking bit. It's like, here's the way I was going to do the joke though, but I was going to be careful with it because the best piece in chess, guys, is the queen. But then I realized I'm really nervous about telling some people from Serbia and Russia that it's like you've got 3 queens in that team doing whatever they want. I'm just so scared. Guys, please don't. It was a chess analogy. Don't misinterpret it. You know what? I haven't been to Serbia recently, but you know what? That's just about chess. It's only a chess thing, guys. Understand that. We're not crossing any lines, okay? Not crossing any lines. I'm not going to pull out a map and do a geography lesson. Joke there is they would have a different sense of what the map says to me. STYKO gets it. That's a good one. Let's keep that one there. Just don't touch that hot potato. That's a grenade. That's a grenade. We all die if we touch that one. It's okay. You have to just walk up to that line and walk right back here. Basically, what you have to do, STYKO, is you're supposed to, as the analyst, walk up to the line, look and go, ooh, it's fucking mighty. Ooh, it's a big drop off there. My problem is I just run and jump, and then sometimes I go, oh shit, I'm going over. Oh, well, see ya. And I hope I grab onto a branch along the way like a cartoon or something and then pull myself back up. Sometimes I don't always do that. But like Wacky Races or fucking, I don't know, in this case, like Wile E. Coyote, I'm still alive next month anyway, so it's all worked out. Acme Centre didn't blow me up entirely. Right, let's move on, because we've only got a couple left. What is Maui's ugly take?
Mine is that we're finally seeing Ultimate as he has been studied. We are finally seeing that the fall off is there. And I've talked about this so many times at this point. I think the first example I really gave in the pro scene was Torzy, where Torzy kind of surprised everybody a couple years ago with his debut with Maus because he was pretty aggressive. He would catch people off guard, and he wouldn't really pop off the page statistically necessarily, but he was able to get away with a lot of aggressive plays very early on when he played with them. But once you get studied as an opper, I always say this, like the first month or couple months or maybe like 4 or 5 tournaments with any new team, like as an opper moves from tier 2 to tier 1, actually are sort of fool's gold. You get these oppers who have all of their favorite ways to play their game, their favorite routes in the mid-round, there are ways to take a shot, fall off, where they're going to move next, and those tier 1 players haven't played against these players before that are coming up from tier 2, and so they don't know what they're going to do next. It's always a mystery, and one of the reasons that people like s1mple and Device were transcendent, and ZywOo were actually, is because you don't know what they're going to do next, because they actually know what you're going to do before you know it. But the thing is with Ultimate, now he's playing catch up. Now he's playing in a tier 1 space that understands what kind of opper he is. They've played against him a couple times. The top teams in the world are getting reps against him, and usually when a player gets a second opportunity against a team, they actually play better. Ultimate played pretty well against FaZe at Cologne, but this time against them in the fall finals, 2 things. 1, it's on stage against FaZe, who are the kings of a stage environment like that, but 2, they actually know how he plays, and so Ultimate fell off a huge cliff for that big moment, and also Ultimate for being one of the most aggressive oppers in tier 1, and Twist actually saying that one of the reasons they got him from tier 2 is because he was one of the best aggressive oppers at that level, or most aggressive. Actually, I think he said most, not actually best aggressive oppers. Ultimate now at the Blast Fall Finals in terms of success rate in opening duels, he was the 7th best of 8 oppers at that tournament. Like, he fell off dramatically because now people are starting to study his moves, like all those other oppers, Brokey, Zywoo, Shiro, what have you. The only opper that did worse in opening duels was actually Device. It wasn't even SunPayus. SunPayus succeeded more in opening duels than Ultimate did. And now I think we're just starting to have to see what some of the shortcomings are. And the reason I put this as ugly and not just bad is that this is where all oppers, when they are in tier 1, have to show what the second gear is. Can they now learn from people anti-stratting them a little bit more? And the reason is that, or the thing is that there's room for growth. There's a redemption here that's built in terms of the narrative for Ultimate after a horrible fall finals where he was clearly anti-stratted. Now he has to learn what are some new openers. He's going to have to play outside of his comfort zone, which had him where he was in tier 2.
I like this point as well because, we've noticed it during the broadcast as well, where he was just kind of struggling. And the only reason they kind of brought it back, I remember specifically on Anubis against Vitality, he was owning Zywoo at some point, but then they were on the brink of losing the map, and he had to whip out like 3 or 4 different consecutive rounds where he had to pull out some gimmick boost to make an opening frag over the smoke. Like, these things are just essentially gambles, and they're not going to work long term. And yes, it made them to go into overtime, I believe, but they still lost. And it's great that you pointed out that these shortcomings are going to be huge ifs when it comes to IEM Rio and then the major cycle itself, because they need Ultimate to be activated. Otherwise, it's going to be just impossible for Team Liquid to kind of like perform on consistent levels with the pieces that they're having right now. Obviously, Yekindar on the team is just another big question mark, being just the worst rated player of the whole event, and all the things that is happening around him is just kind of wild. And what I will give for the audience here is that the narrative of him, like, Ultimate got scouted from pure Face-It games, I would say. It's just going to be, just like any one of you can be scouted in future for academy team or something like that. If you have ambitions to go pro, this is the way that you're going to be scouted as well. And now Ultimate was thrown into tier 1 Counter-Strike, and you've seen that it worked at the beginning, but now the real test is coming. And this is what kind of awaits anyone who is going to come from that environment. How are you going to adapt? You're no longer yourself. You're no longer the player that was picked up. You need to adapt to different things, because it's doing your team more harm than good that you're being countered this easily. And this is one of the things that players don't even understand. You're like, if you're an aggressive player, you're going to be aggressive for the rest of their life. Of course not. This is not going to work. And aggressiveness in Counter-Strike is being punished really hard, especially with the Nob being the most expensive gun in the game. You just have to perform more consistently. And it's not happening from Ultimate at the Blast. Especially stage games are going to be something that he needs to seek experience for.
Yeah, one thing that I think people missed as well is he hasn't played many playoff games. Like, this was one of his first stage games. Remember, EPL wasn't staged in the same sense. Look, obviously, Na'Vi and Eternal Fire might disagree with that because there was crowd intervention, all that jazz. But in general, it's not the same scenario. So first of all, the pressure's different. And you saw under the first time he was on the pressure, he didn't do as well. And then secondly, I'll also very quickly say, I'll even give an example. Actually, his CT side AWPing on Anubis is the most obvious fool's gold I've seen in years. Like, I actually was shocked when I went and watched a bunch of the demos. How did people not notice how aggressive the posturing he's taking, how he's going for like an early kill all the time and getting it all the time as well, by the way? Like, no AWPer plays that way. No, m0NESY won't play that way. Zimu won't play. None of them do. Shiva would never even attempt some of these peaks and boosts, by the way. Like, no one else is doing that. So first of all, the reason why Team Liquid, I sometimes say I think they're second or third best team in the world after Vitality on that map. I think they're really good on Anubis. But the problem is, one of the reasons why is what this guy is doing. And once people tunnel in on that and they study it like they studied the Na'Vi Mirage and all the rest of it, it will start to be getting closer and closer games, and you'll lose them as well. And also, Vitality is just better on that map, in my opinion. Then also, I will just say this angle too, which is, I don't think people really appreciate how different it is when you're allowed to just take a fight and it's just a fight, to where someone does, like I've just suggested there. We're going to actually tunnel vision on this guy. We're going to see when he takes his angles. If he gets pushed back off a smoke, does he re-peek it? Does he go back behind it? Once they get those things down, the other teams, and the point is, they weren't studying you before because you weren't a tournament favourite to win. They might play you in the tournament, so they'll watch a few demos. Now, they're actually going to look and by the way, other tournaments is going to get even harder. If you ever make a playoffs of a Cologne or a Katowice, there are days for that coach to go. Blade is literally downloading like your whole fucking career of demos, if you know what I mean, and seeing every angle, everything you do. And so suddenly they can use your own instincts against you. That doesn't happen at tier 2. In tier 2, you play a billion games against everyone and you try and get a little gimmick here and there, but generally people play the way they play and they can frag out. That's why all the top players come up with the 1.2 rating in tier 3 and tier 2, then they jump to tier 1, and like we say, you have a honeymoon period and then it starts to get hard. And once you hit those events where you're having the 1.1, the 1.05 rating, what you find out there is that's why there's only like 10 AWPers in the world anyone gives a fuck about. Because that is one of the hardest fucking roles to do in this game. And that's one of the roles where they can limit you with what they do on the opposition. So yeah, that's the angle I'll say for that. Right, for the last point, we'll make this one reasonably quick. I'm going to say my ugly point, shout out to Vu. He's the one who nailed it in a video. You know, even though I decried and laughed at the Zontix angle that he doesn't aim low, right? Here's the problem. I meant as in if he could get a headshot, he wouldn't then choose to shoot you in the body, right? I will say I was wrong slightly on that one. He does shoot way lower than you'd expect most of the time. It's almost like he doesn't believe he has headshot him and he just goes for like the body shot. The craziest one ever though, that's acceptable because if you look at his role and his skill set, I think that works for Zontix to some degree. The Calyx one is actually making me mad. Once I now know it, I can't unsee it and it's killing me. Because basically Calyx, if you know, has fucking good aim and he can shoot people in the head definitely. And he loves an AK. But I'll tell you what, this guy religiously aims way above the head where like they'd have to actually jump to get headshot by him on the angle. And the worst thing is if you watch Vu's video, he won really quickly. I'm going to guess he has high sense. It'll just be a guess from watching him. He really quickly sprays down. So he sometimes still gets the kill even if they come round when he's aiming up high. And then secondly, he also crouches to make the crosshair go to head height, which is like, you don't need to do that, bro. Your right hand can do that. You don't need your left hand to do that. And then I'll just throw this out there as well. One last thing. I saw someone suggest something as like a devil's advocate that makes sense if you are literally a fucking noob, but makes no sense if you are a pro. They said maybe he's one of those people who has a problem with his crosshair where he can't see like if they pop into the crosshair. So he has to have that only makes, first of all, there's a million crosshair angles or more and you can have a giant one. Secondly, that's what a noob thinks because that's a noob would go, but I can't quite see, so I'm going to aim off the angle and then pull back on. Nico doesn't need to do that. He can just see it inside the crosshair and shoot you in the head. So that last one's not real. But I want to get people's take because actually this is one where Vu's nailed it. Like when you see it, you can't unsee it. And unfortunately, it will tilt you when you see it. It's really tilt-worthy.
For me, I think it's an extremely volatile, bad habit to have. I don't even think, I wonder, I want to ask Calyx, like, does he know about this? Does he know about this bad habit?
What's the actor from fucking Prisoners, Maui, that meme is of? Does he know? You know the one like Paul, Paul, whatever his name, Jano or whatever. Dano, there you go. Put that with the Calyx's face. And does he know? Does he know?
Yeah. Because I think this is unironically making him a little bit like unstable and inconsistent because, exactly, we've been circling around this again. Like the way people peak in Counter-Strike, if you're expecting a peak, you cannot predict if he's going to white peak, if he's going to crouch peak, and then imagine, okay, he's aiming way above the head, but imagine that the person that is peeking him actually crouches. Like the difference between his actual crosshair and the head where he's supposed to shoot is massive, and you cannot really predict reliably when people are going to appear on your screen, how fast they're going to go, and it just creates a vicious cycle where it makes your performance, in my opinion, just inconsistent. And it also comes down to, what was I going to say actually? It was the model itself. Like if you look at the model of any human being, like obviously the head is this small ball on the body that is just thicker, and if you are going for kills or save kills, the bigger chance you're having is actually that you kind of like put 3 bullets in the body compared to just hitting that head, which is, in my opinion, a little bit RNG factor that he's putting into his game by his own conscious mind. Or I don't know, does he know? That's the real question. Like I'm gonna just end my take on that because it's wild. Now that I saw the video as well, it's as I said like before the show, it's just like he's expecting Giraffe to peek him.
The way that he aims, I have no better way to put it other than it pisses me off. Like, why would you, in any sense, have crosshair placement that is not set to actually be where they're going to be? Like, I would actually, all days of the week, every month of the year, I would rather have my support anchor player like Calyx and Zontix aim like Zontix over Calyx. Like, if you can do 70 damage consistently in an anchor position, I want that. I actually, in some ways, want that more if I believe that my team especially throws good utility. If we throw good nades in the round, I want people that aim like Zontix. I would want, there was that Reddit thread a long time ago about, does Astralis aim low? Does Astralis purposely aim for the body? And I actually think there was a little bit of merit behind that, because they believed that they had so much utility damage in the round, like so much unconfirmed damage is the way Launders framed it, that you would believe that just make the fight easier on yourself. You probably did enough damage through your utility, your nades and mollies earlier, that they're down to 50 HP. And then, yeah, like hitting 2 body shots is easier than hitting 1 headshot on a moving target. And it's probably a reason like Liquid, so much of their success in the Grand Slam run was predicated on having bonkers aim and just like unbelievable mechanics in a very short span of time. But Astralis knew that, hey, if we just always keep updating our nade protocols, come up with new ideas to find double nades, throw good Molotovs that are going to deny space, or if they take that space, they're going to take a ton of damage. I like that so much more. And then Calyx is like, yeah, fuck all that. I'm just gonna headshot everybody, and in fact, if they crouch, I'm gonna have to flick so far down so quickly. I looked it up while you were saying that, Thorin. Calyx's effective DPI is 1600. He's using 800 DPI, 2.0 cents, at least according to pro settings. I don't know what it is about Turkish players like Walkskin that just decide to do that. Like,
I assume they just started with a bad mouse or something, and a small mouse pad and all that jazz.
Yeah, like they all play in LAN cafes with tiny mouse pads that they were sitting next to each other, is that why they have to do that? But like, STYKO is somebody with a pretty high headshot percentage. Calyx's is a little bit higher. I feel like STYKO, I'm just curious, like when you aim, like why on earth, like, I feel like your headshot percentage looks pretty good though. Like for the year I saw it was like above 50%, 58, 59%, and Calyx's is above 60%. Like, I mean, is there really any thought? Like, I think 58, 59 is really, like, that's just good. Like, I would want players on my team to have around that sort of number, because if you're going above 60, you're either a freak of nature like Bit or lately Malbs, or you're just kind of doing it as sort of a gimmick because you can't get kills in any other way. Like, what is the lack of trust there for people that aim that have such high headshot percentage? Or is like, are they just kind of like egoing every single gunfight that they're thinking? Like, it's like Scream. Like, Scream had that problem where sometimes, dude, you could have probably just sprayed him, but you went for 3 taps instead, and in that same time, you could have sprayed 4 bullets into his body. Like, I don't get the mentality behind it always.
I think it differs from player to player. Something is just ego, that people just want to make it look good. Like, they're literally going for highlights in a sense. I remember Olaf saying sometimes about Nico the same thing. Like, you can just spray him and it's easy kill, but you decide to go for 1 tap, and you're Nico, you're gonna hit that, but please just play it safe, because I'm anxious watching you. I'm anxious spectating you. That's what Olaf said about Nico. And for me, it's kind of that I'm very conscious about aiming and the way I position my crosshairs. I obviously watch a lot of demos, and when I'm watching Bit, for example, I think it's just way too good, or like probably the best player when it comes to visualization. Like, he's just kind of, he knows where he needs to aim, not necessarily pre-aiming the angle, but predicting where the enemy is because of sound or because of nade usage and stuff like that. So his like crosshair placement to the head of the actual enemy is super small. The distance is super small. And this is what I'm trying to pick up on as well, where I don't really think about getting headshots. I don't do that on purpose, but I just find myself naturally leaning into positions which are like headshot angles, I would say. And it's just who I am as a player. It's how I position myself, how I'm utilizing my teammates. I'm trying to always aim at the head and be conscious about the way I approach my fights. And no matter if it's 1 tap, if it's burst fire, or if it's a full spray, it's just something that I practice. And I'm really interested in aiming community in general. So that is also helping my case, just making sure that I have good aim habits. And what I'm seeing in the Calyx is one of the worst aim habits I've ever seen. But you know what? I'm not on a team, and he's on a top 10 team. So maybe I'm doing something wrong.
If I could,
Nick, this is a bit quick, please. Just go on.
Yeah. Okay. If I could just like tell somebody where you should have good crosshair placement for the rest of your life, it's kind of like if you could aim it like between their mouth and their nose, because then you always have the chance to spray down. But like, you don't want to aim like at the tip of their forehead or anything like that. I don't know. Just watching Calyx makes me sick.